I woke up to a beautiful woman calling out, "Husband, take your medicine," and had no idea what was going on. I found myself in a broken-down straw hut. On a big bed lay 10 dying men, and in the corners sat 9 gorgeous women, all crying their eyes out. Then memories hit me like a flood. I'm Lynn M.O, a regular guy from the 21st century who got transported to ancient times while helping an old lady cross the road. I ended up in the body of the youngest son of the Lynn family, the 10th brother. My dad was a famous general, and my 9 older brothers were legendary warriors. But half a month ago, my brothers were poisoned on the battlefield. Then someone spread a rumor that they betrayed the country. The emperor got furious and took everything from us, kicked us out of the capital, and sent us to this dump of a border town. Dad collapsed from the shock and couldn't get up since. Now here we all were, Dad and all 9 brothers barely alive in this crappy hut. Then my eldest brother grabbed my hand and, with his dying breath, told me, "After I die, don't you dare touch your sister-in-law," and died right there. I went to my second brother. Same thing. "Don't you dare have any ideas about my wife," then he died too. By the third brother, I tried to save time. I swear I won't touch her, but he still had to add his own warning before dying. One by one, all 9 brothers gave me the same dying wish: stay away from their wives. I felt like I was attending some kind of bizarre, hands-off-the-sisters-in-law ceremony. These guys were dying from poison, framed for treason, and all they cared about was whether I'd make a move on their women. Do I really look that untrustworthy? I'm so skinny a breeze could knock me over. Then Dad coughed up blood. We all rushed to him. But the old man said the exact opposite. Turns out none of my brothers ever actually consummated their marriages because they were sent to war right on their wedding days. Dad's last order? All 9 sisters-in-law now belong to me. I need to take care of them and make lots of babies to continue the family line. Brothers, don't touch them. Dad, make as many kids as possible. Could you guys have at least agreed on something before dying? Within half an hour, all 10 of them were gone. Just me, the weakest guy alive, and 9 stunning women left in a broken shack. No money, no power, no strength, and an emperor who wants us dead. I was ready to give up on life. But then a voice rang in my head, some kind of system activated, saying it detected I'm the last of the Lynn bloodline, and the family is in danger. It promised rewards for, well, doing exactly what Dad asked me to do. So the system said I get stronger by winning over beautiful women? I can work with that. It gave me a starter gift, a body-strengthening pill. The moment I held it, I could feel warmth spreading through my hand. This broken body of mine finally had a chance. Before I could even think about what to do next, my eldest sister-in-law, Su Qingwei, asked me the big question. What do we do now? All 9 of them were looking at me. I was the only man left. Every decision was on me now. I looked around at the mess we were in. We couldn't even afford coffins. So I told them we'd just bury Dad and my brothers simply, straight into the ground. It hurt to say, but nobody argued. We all knew there was no other choice. So there I was, one sickly guy and 9 beautiful widows, carrying 10 bodies on broken door planks out of Blackwind City. We buried them on a hillside outside town, 10 lonely graves under a setting sun. I knelt down and made my promises. I told Dad and my brothers I'd get revenge, that I'd drag that trash emperor off his throne and make him apologize on his knees. I was rambling about upgrading their graves to mansions someday. Behind me, the sisters-in-law were whispering to each other, worried I'd lost my mind. Su Qingwei came over and gently touched my arm, telling me we needed to keep living and look forward. I told her I was fine, better than fine, actually. They all thought I'd gone crazy. They had no idea about the system. Then trouble showed up. A gang of thugs came swaggering over, led by a Scarface named Wang Erba, the local bully of Blackwind City. He'd had his eye on my sisters-in-law for a while, but never dared try anything while Dad and my brothers were alive. Now that they were gone, he thought it was his lucky day. He started saying disgusting things, telling the girls to come with him, leering at every one of them like they were meat at a market. His lackeys were laughing and egging him on. Su Qingwei pushed me behind her to protect me. Second sister-in-law Qin Rushue stepped forward too, ready to fight even though her sword had been sold off long ago. She was planning to kick him right where it counts. But before she could move, I was already past her. I don't know any fighting techniques. I just saw red. These scumbags were harassing my family right in front of me. So I ran straight at Wang Erba and kicked him between the legs as hard as I could. The sound was unpleasant, like eggs cracking. His face turned purple. Before he could even finish cursing at me, I punched him square in the face. One clean hit. His whole body, easily over 200 pounds, flew backward and crashed into the ground about 15 meters away. He didn't get up. Dead silence. His goons just stood there, jaws hanging open, barely holding onto their weapons. Wasn't I supposed to be the weak little nobody who couldn't even hold a chicken? The thugs just stood there, frozen. They couldn't fight me, but running away would be embarrassing. Then one of them got a bright idea. He rushed to Wang Erba's side yelling about getting him to a doctor. The rest jumped on the excuse and carried him off like their lives depended on it. Gone in seconds. I stood there staring at my own fist. Holy crap, did I really just do that? I had secretly swallowed that body-strengthening pill when the thugs first showed up. At first I felt nothing but a warm current inside me and thought the thing was a dud. But then I punched that guy and sent him flying over 15 meters. The pill didn't just fix my body. It gave me a whole new engine. Then it hit me. How was I going to explain this? I was supposed to be the weakling who couldn't even watch a chicken get killed. I couldn't exactly tell them. Oh, I have a system that makes me stronger when I sleep with beautiful women. So I did what any reasonable man would do. I faked passing out. I grabbed my chest, turned pale, groaned about overexerting myself, and collapsed backward like a dead fish. Oscar-worthy performance. It worked perfectly. The sisters-in-law panicked and caught me. They carried me home like I was a national treasure. 9 beautiful women fussing over me the whole way. Some pinched pressure points, some checked my breathing, all of them worried sick. I felt a little guilty enjoying it. But hey, I'm the last man of this family. Someone's got to keep morale up. What I didn't notice was second sister-in-law Chin Rushua giving me suspicious looks. She's a trained fighter. She could tell that punch had real power behind it, not the desperate last strike of a dying man. She wasn't buying my act. Back home, it was chaos. They lit fires, boiled water, made porridge, tucked me in, wiped my sweat. They didn't stop until midnight, when exhaustion finally knocked them out one by one. We all slept on one big makeshift bed, just wooden planks and straw. 9 women and me, squeezed together. The air was full of nice scents, and I couldn't calm down. I pulled up the system screen in my mind. It showed my level, body tempering, stage 1. No skills, no techniques, no quests. The only way to get rewards was to do what Dad asked, carry on the family line. I looked over at Su Qingwei lying next to me. Moonlight was falling through a hole in the roof right onto her. She was already half asleep, wearing just a thin dark nightgown that left very little to the imagination. I reached over and pulled her into my arms. She went stiff. Little brother-in-law, you're awake? Let go of me. I told her not to call me that anymore. Call me husband. Her face turned completely red. She tried to push me away but couldn't. She was scared of waking the others and having them see us like this. And technically, by Dad's last words, I really was her husband now. That thought made her stop fighting it. And that night, under the broken roof and the moonlight, we became husband and wife for real. Afterward, everything went quiet. Su Qingwei was lying there with her face buried in the pillow, completely embarrassed. I was still right behind her, feeling pretty good about life. I checked the system in my head. It congratulated me for completing a family task and gave me a reward package. It also unlocked something new called the Beauty Gallery, basically a collection book for all the beautiful women I went over. Su Qingyue's profile showed up first. Beauty score, 92 out of 100. Closeness, 60 out of 100. She had a special talent called Homemaker, but it wasn't activated yet. To unlock it, I needed her to willingly call me husband from her heart. Once activated, I get a stamina boost for family activities. Then I opened the reward package. I got an ancient cultivation technique called Dragon and Phoenix Harmony. It lets a man and woman train together. Both get stronger through intimacy. Regular people who practice it can even awaken spiritual roots and step onto the path of immortality. So basically, getting close to beautiful women doesn't just make me stronger, it makes them stronger too. We can all level up together. Brothers, I hope you're watching from heaven. I'm doing this for the family. Then Su Qingyue's voice pulled me back. You lied, she whispered angrily, trying not to wake the others. She'd figured it out. My fainting act that afternoon was completely fake. That punch I threw had serious power behind it. No way I was exhausted afterward. And then tonight, I was full of energy, which proved it beyond any doubt. She was furious at being tricked, eyes watering, calling me a liar. She looked incredible when she was angry, face flushed, lips pouting, breathing hard. I couldn't focus on a single word she was saying. She punched my chest with her little fist. It felt like being hit by a pillow. I grabbed her wrist, pulled her back into my arms, and kissed her before she could say another word. She went wide-eyed. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I was the one caught lying. I should have been apologizing. Instead, I was kissing her mid-argument. When I finally let go, she was gasping, all red-faced, completely out of fight. Then the system chimed. Su Qingwe closeness 1. Wait, kissing raises closeness too? I looked down at her with renewed interest. She saw the look in my eyes and went pale. What? What are you doing? I was already making my move. You? Again, she gasped. Su Qingwe couldn't believe it. She asked if I wasn't tired. Honestly, I felt great. Better than great. I leaned close and told her I'd show her what real exhaustion looks like. This time, I activated the Dragon and Phoenix Harmony technique while we were together. A warm energy rose from deep inside me and flowed through my whole body. It was incredible. I could feel myself getting stronger in real time, my blood and muscles filling with a strange new power. Afterward, I felt completely refreshed. I checked my system panel. My cultivation levels still showed body tempering stage 1, but now it said beginner's insight next to it, and the Dragon and Phoenix technique was listed under my skills. The path of cultivation was officially open. I opened the beauty gallery. Su Qingyue's closeness had jumped from 61 to 71. Her status changed from one night's pleasure to craving more. All that hard work was paying off. But her special talent, homemaker, was still locked. I needed her to willingly call me husband from her heart. The reward? Even more stamina for cultivation sessions. She was curled up against me, completely spent, barely conscious. I gently nudged her and whispered, "Come on, dear. Call me husband." Her eyes fluttered open. She realized what I was asking, and her whole face turned red like a tomato. She buried her head in my chest and pretended to be asleep. No way was she saying it. So she needed more convincing. Huh? I rolled over and pinned her again. Her eyes went wide. You? Again? Too late. My mind was set. Tonight's goal, closeness to 100, special talent unlocked. Afterward, Su Qingyue was curled up against me like a happy cat, glowing with satisfaction. The cultivation technique had done something amazing to her. Her skin was brighter, smoother, like she'd become even more beautiful right before my eyes. Me? I was dying, completely wiped out. Now I understood why ancient emperors didn't live long. I dragged up my system panel with the last of my energy. My cultivation had jumped all the way to body tempering stage 1, grand completion. I'd pushed it from beginner's insight through intermediate all the way to the top in one night. My internal energy had grown from a tiny trickle to a proper stream flowing through my body, strengthening my bones and muscles with every cycle. Worth it? Barely. My back might never recover. Su Qingyue's stats were looking great too. Beauty score up to 95, nation-toppling beauty. Closeness maxed out at 100, hopelessly smitten. But her special talent was still locked because she hadn't called me husband willingly yet. Then the system gave me another reward for hitting max closeness. A spirit sword called the Pity Flower Blade. Ice blue, 3 feet long, simple but deadly sharp. Its power grows based on the total closeness of all the women in my beauty gallery. More women, higher closeness, sharper sword. I like this weapon already. I started planning our next steps. We needed money, a better house, and a way to rebuild the Lin family. Blackwind City was a lawless border town full of gangs and bandits. I need to scout around for opportunities. Then a soft hand touched my face. I looked down. Su Qingyue had completely transformed. Gone was the shy, reluctant woman from earlier. Her eyes were misty and full of desire. The cultivation technique hadn't tired her out. It had energized her, like rain on dry soil. Husband, she whispered. The system instantly chimed. Talent, homemaker, activated. I received the boundless energy gift, and just like that, all my exhaustion vanished. My whole body felt recharged, like someone poured fuel back into an empty tank. Before I could even celebrate, Su Qingyue's hand slid lower. Husband. Again. Wait, what? Before I could react, she flipped me onto my back and climbed on top. This time it was me letting out a yelp of surprise. She was looking down at me with her hair falling around us, completely in charge, like a queen on her throne. This was not how the script was supposed to go. But she didn't care about my shock one bit. She leaned in close, breathing warm against my face, eyes locked on mine with absolute authority. Tonight was far from over. I slept like I was dead. Even in my dreams I was mumbling. There's nothing left, not a single drop. If it weren't for that boundless energy talent kicking in earlier, I'd probably be sharing a grave with Dad and my brothers right now. When I finally woke up, Su Qingyue was standing by the bed with a bowl of porridge, gently shaking my shoulder. She almost called me husband, but caught herself and switched to little brother-in-law, since the others were watching. I was still half asleep and reached for her without thinking. Why are you still calling me little brother-in-law? She pinched my side hard and shot me a look. I followed her eyes and saw all 8 sisters-in-law sitting at the table, staring right at us. Every single one of them had massive dark circles under their eyes. They looked like they'd been up all night mining coal. I sat down and stupidly asked why they all looked so tired. Second sister-in-law Qin Rushue put down her chopsticks and said flatly, "You and big sister made so much noise last night. How could anyone sleep?" I nearly choked on my porridge. Su Qingyue's face went from red to nuclear. She launched off her stool like a rocket and ran outside with her hands over her face. The other sisters-in-law buried their faces in their bowls, refusing to look up. The awkwardness was thick enough to cut with a knife. I figured there was no saving this situation, so I grabbed both my bowl and Su Qingyue's and stood up straight. "You all eat. I'm going to bring my wife her breakfast." The word, wife, came out so casually, it was almost criminal. Qin Rushue spit her porridge clean across the table onto 7th sister-in-law's face. I found Su Qingyue outside, crouched on a log with her face buried in her knees. I sat next to her and nudged her arm. She looked up with teary eyes. "It's all your fault. Now everyone knows." How am I supposed to face them? I told her it wasn't my fault. She was the one who was too loud. She nearly exploded. But she couldn't argue back because, well, she knew it was true. I pulled her close and softened my voice. I told her we were legitimate husband and wife, nothing to be ashamed of. Then I pointed out something that got her attention real fast. "You're my first wife. That means you got first place. Even if I take in all the other sisters later, they'll still have to call you big sister and follow your lead. You'll be in charge of everything." She stared at me in shock. "You actually plan to take all 9 of us?" I shrugged. "Dad's dying wish. How could I possibly refuse?" Su Qingyue glared at me while sipping her porridge, but I could tell she wasn't really mad anymore. I asked her how much food we had left. Her face dropped. "About 3 days, if we eat light, 3 days. And that's with 9 women barely eating. We were in real trouble." She tried to cheer me up, saying she and the sisters could go find work in the city, sewing, washing clothes, whatever. But I wasn't about to let 9 gorgeous women wander around a lawless city doing hard labor for a few coins. I kissed her on the cheek and told her I'd handle it. Then I reached into the system storage and pulled out the pity flower sword right in front of her. Her eyes went so wide I thought they'd pop out. "Where did that come from? How did you just make a sword appear?" Good question. I couldn't exactly tell her about the system. So I leaned in and whispered the most ridiculous explanation I could come up with. That last night, through our intimate union, I achieved a breakthrough in the great Tao of life, and the sword was born from that enlightenment. She just stared at me, face burning red, completely speechless. I kissed her again, handed her the sword, and told her to give it to second sister-in-law Qin Rushue, since she's the only fighter among them. I needed someone to protect the house while I went to Black Wind Mountain to hunt for food. Then I walked out the door feeling like a boss. After I left, Qin Rushue came out and immediately wanted to chase after me. She thought Black Wind Mountain was way too dangerous with its wild beasts and bandits. Su Qingyue stopped her, explaining I'd ordered her to stay and guard everyone. Then Su Qingyue handed over the sword. The moment Qin Rushue drew it, she was hooked. The blade was ice cold, sharp enough to cut just by looking at it, with strange flowing patterns along the steel. She could tell instantly it was an extraordinary weapon. But then came the question I was dreading. Where did he get this sword? Su Qingyue stammered and dodged the question until Qin Rushue literally shook her by the shoulders, demanding an answer. Finally, completely mortified, Su Qingwe blurted out my ridiculous explanation that the sword was born from our union last night because I comprehended the great Tao through the harmony of yin and yang. Qin Rushue froze solid for 3 full seconds. Then she looked at Su Qingwe like she'd lost her mind. Big sister, you actually believe that nonsense? Su Qingwe buried her face and wished the ground would swallow her whole. Qin Rushue stared at the priceless sword in her hand, then thought about how I'd completely swept Big Sister off her feet in a single night and produced a legendary weapon out of thin air. Her brain short-circuited. What exactly had I become overnight? Black Wind Mountain looked scary. Massive trees blocking out the sun, dark shadows everywhere, wind howling through the branches. But I wasn't the old weak Lynn M.O anymore. I marched in looking for something big to bring home. 9 hungry beauties were waiting for me, and a couple of rabbits wasn't going to cut it. I needed a wild boar or a deer at minimum. 2 hours later, I was soaked in sweat and hadn't found a single living thing. Not even a pig hair. I'd been bragging about being a provider, and now the mountain was making me look like an idiot. I was starving too. Last night's marathon plus only a bowl of thin porridge for breakfast had left my stomach growling like crazy. I was seriously considering going back to the city and pawning my shirt for food money. Embarrassing, but better than letting everyone starve. I turned to head back down the mountain. That's when 3 guys jumped out of the bushes screaming, "Halt! This is a robbery!" I nearly had a heart attack. Pure reflex. My arm swung around, and I slapped the leader across the face before I even knew what was happening. You think this is a video game? Hiding in bushes like that? The leader was a one-eyed bandit called One-Eye Biao. He and his 2 goons looked pathetic, ragged clothes, chipped and dull blades, barely threatening. He'd been robbing people on this mountain for years, but he'd clearly never had a victim slap him first. He got mad and raised his knife at me. Bad move. I hit him with my signature move, a kick straight between the legs. Same recipe, same flavor as what I gave Wang Erba. He dropped to his knees with his face turning purple, couldn't even scream. His buddy charged at me with a blade. I dodged and punched him square in the face. I heard bones crack. He went down and didn't get up. Blood splattered all over me. The 3rd guy saw what happened and tried to run. I kicked him in the back and sent him flying. Lights out. Standing there covered in blood, I looked like a demon. But I didn't care. I crouched down and started going through their pockets. And that's when I found it. A small cloth pouch with 5 whole silver taels and a handful of copper coins. 5 taels. In Black Wind City, a big meat bun costs 2 copper coins, and 1 tael equals 1,000 coppers. That's enough to feed a regular family for years, eat at restaurants for a month, or, well, let's just say it was a lot of money. Who knew these ragged bandits were loaded? Hunting was a bust, but getting robbed turned out to be the best thing that happened to me all day. I wasn't done yet. There were 2 more guys lying on the ground with pockets to check. The second one had 7 taels. Nice. Then I went to One-Eye Biao. He tried crawling away, begging me to stop. I stepped on his back, pinned him down, and started searching. He was the leader, so he'd better have more than his goons. I found a brand new pink silk undergarment in his pocket. Disgusting. I gave him a look of pure contempt, and then stuffed it in my own pocket. Waste not, want not. He started threatening me, said his boss at Black Wind Fortress would come for revenge. I slapped him twice more. That shut him up. Then I found the jackpot. A heavy money pouch with 18 taels of silver. Combined with the others, that was nearly 30 taels from 3 scraggly bandits. Being a mountain bandit pays well, apparently. I was about to leave when something clicked in my head. Black Wind Fortress. Close by. Full of money. I grabbed One-Eye by the collar, yanked him up, and told him to lead the way. He brought me to a hill overlooking the fortress. I tied him up with his own rope, gagged him with his own sock. The smell was awful, and studied the situation below. The place was just a wooden compound. About 25 bandits were throwing a party, celebrating a big haul. They'd captured some merchants, locked them in a wooden cage, and stolen all their goods. Boxes of loot were stacked everywhere. The bandit chief, a big bearded guy, was passed out drunk at a table with drool running down his face. 2 terrified young women stood next to him, fanning him while shaking with fear. Most of the bandits were so wasted they could barely stand. The guard in the watchtower was asleep too. This was too perfect. I'd only come to scout, but this was like a gift-wrapped delivery. 25 drunk bandits versus one very motivated man with a family to feed. I made my decision. For my wife's future meals. For a better life. The risk was worth it. I turned to One-Eye Biao. I patted his shoulder and told him sincerely that in his next life, he should try being a good person. His eye went wide with terror. One quick snap, and he went still. I stood up, brushed the grass off my clothes, stretched a little, and crept silently toward the fortress. I climbed up to the watchtower first, snapped the sleeping guard's neck, and got myself a perfect view of the whole compound. From up there I could see everything. Drunk bandits passed out everywhere, broken wine jars and gnawed bones all over the ground. I grabbed some sharp stones and started picking them off one by one. The first guy was chugging from a huge wine jar. A stone to the forehead, and he dropped like a log, face first into a greasy table. Nobody even noticed. Two more were over by the wall relieving themselves, bragging about women they couldn't afford. I got the skinny one first. He fell forward, and his buddy thought he'd just passed out drunk. Then the short, fat one spotted the blood, opened his mouth to scream, and my next stone went in through the back of his skull and out his open mouth. He dropped right next to his friend. I kept going. My body-tempering cultivation gave me incredible aim and throwing power. Each stone carried a bit of internal energy behind it. One shot, one kill. Silent and clean. Then I got cocky. I aimed at a huge, muscular guy, arms thicker than my legs, but the stone hit his wine jar instead of his head. The jar shattered, and he smashed his forehead on the table corner, which hurt enough to sober him up fast. He looked around, saw dead bodies everywhere, and started screaming for the boss. I threw another stone and got him in the forehead, but it was half a second too late. His yell had already echoed through the whole camp. The bandit chief, the big bearded guy, woke up instantly. He slammed his palm down on his table and split the whole thing into pieces. Solid wood, shattered with one hand. That told me this guy was no joke. His roar woke everyone else up. The surviving bandits stumbled to their feet, still half drunk, and saw the carnage. 7 or 8 of their brothers dead in their seats, each with a hole in the head, blood pooling everywhere. Panic spread fast. They started screaming that someone had broken into the fortress. I'd managed to thin out about a third of them from the shadows. But the element of surprise was gone now. Time for the messy part. The camp exploded into panic. Some bandits scrambled for their weapons, others tried to barricade the gates, and a few just went weak in the knees and collapsed on the spot. It was a beautiful mess. But their leader was no fool. He kicked one of the screaming idiots to shut everyone up, and the whole yard went quiet. Within seconds, he was pointing at people and giving orders. You, check the watchtower. You guys get over here and form up. Just like that, he turned a bunch of panicking drunks into something resembling an organized defense. I had to admit, for a bandit chief, this guy had a brain. From my perch in the watchtower, I did a quick head count. My sneak attack had taken out 12. That left 13, boss included. Still too many to just charge and swinging. The leader sent one of his guys climbing up the ladder to deal with me. I crouched by the edge and watched through the gaps in the wooden planks as his greasy head bobbed closer and closer. 2 more rungs. 1 more. The second his skull cleared the top, I stomped down on his face with everything I had. The crack was loud and ugly. He let out a short scream and dropped straight down like a sack of rice, hit the ground with a thud, and didn't move again. The boss saw his man fall and didn't miss a beat. He slapped away another volunteer who wanted to try climbing up. Are you stupid? Didn't you see what just happened to him? And immediately changed tactics. He sent 3 guys to the storage room for fire oil and ordered others to grab bows and arrows to keep me pinned down. Burn the tower, and if I try to escape, shoot me full of holes. I heard every word from up top. 1,000 curse words ran through my head. This guy was way too clever for a mountain bandit. Fire attack plus range suppression? That's textbook military strategy. Who taught this guy? A retired general. I knew the math. Once that fire oil arrived, I was dead. Either I burn alive up here, or I jump down into a wall of arrows. Neither option appealed to me, so I stopped thinking and started moving. I shot to my feet, standing fully exposed on the edge of the watchtower. Wind whipped at my blood-stained clothes. For a split second, every eye in the yard locked onto me. He's showing himself. Shoot. Shoot him, someone screamed, but nobody had their bows ready yet. They were still fumbling with arrows and strings, hands clumsy from alcohol. That half second was all I needed. I already had a whole bag of sharp stones ready. I wound up my arm and hurled them down into the crowd below, not one at a time, but fistfuls, as fast and as hard as I could. The idiots had clustered together around their boss for safety. Biggest mistake of their lives. I didn't even need to aim. Every throw hit something. Stones ripped through the air and slammed into flesh. The sounds were sickening. Wet thuds of stone punching into skin, sharp cracks of bones breaking, the ping of a stone ricocheting off a dropped sword. My eyes, my leg. My leg is broken. One guy grabbed between his legs and crumpled, screaming something about his little brother. The front row went down instantly. Heads split open, blood spraying. The ones behind them tripped over the falling bodies. I kept throwing, wave after wave, each stone powered by my body-tempering cultivation, each one carrying enough force to punch through bone. Retreat. Get inside. Everyone get in the building now. The boss was screaming at the top of his lungs, holding his big cleaver over his head like an umbrella. One of my stones clipped his ear and tore off a chunk. Blood sprayed down his neck and he howled in pain. But he kept moving, shoving his men toward the main hall. I answered his retreat with another barrage. More screams, more bodies dropping. But the survivors finally made it through the door, the boss diving in last, and someone slammed the heavy wooden door shut behind them. I stopped throwing and caught my breath. My arm was aching from the effort. Looking down at the yard, I counted the damage. 5 more dead, plus several crawling around with shattered limbs, moaning and bleeding out. Between the sneak attack and this barrage, I'd taken out roughly 20 of the original 25. Inside that building, maybe 6 or 7 left, including the boss. Good enough odds. I slid down the ladder, boots hitting the dirt with a solid thump. I walked calmly through the carnage, stepping over broken wine jars, scattered weapons, and groaning bodies. The wounded ones on the ground looked up at me with terror in their eyes. I didn't hesitate. These weren't innocent people. They robbed, they raped, they murdered. I'd seen the cage with the captured merchants. I'd seen the terrified girls forced to fan their sleeping boss. 1 kick each. Quick, clean, final. After the yard was silent, I walked to a spot well out of reach of the door and called out, "Hey, you can come out now. The great and mighty chief of Blackwind Fortress. Is this really all you've got? Hiding behind a door like a turtle in its shell? What would people say if they heard about this?" Silence for a long moment. Then a muffled voice came through the thick wood. "Friend outside, let's be reasonable here. Blackwind Fortress has stood on this mountain for over 10 years. We built our reputation on fairness. We've never wronged you before, so what's this about? Can we talk it out, fairness?" I almost laughed out loud. Fairness is kidnapping merchants and forcing girls to serve you? I tossed a stone up and caught it, staring at the door. "Sure, let's talk. Open up, and we'll have a nice face-to-face chat. I'm a very reasonable person. Why don't you come inside, brother? We can sit down, have some wine." "Nah, I think it's better if you come out." No way was I walking into a dark room where half a dozen desperate men with swords could be hiding behind every corner. I wasn't born yesterday. Dead silence from behind the door. Nobody was coming out. I smiled, showing my teeth. "Not coming? All right then. I'll just have to invite you out myself." I turned and walked over to the fire oil jars, the same ones the boss had ordered his men to fetch to burn down my watchtower. How's that for irony? I grabbed the first jar, popped the lid, and splashed the contents across the wooden door and the wall around it. The sharp chemical smell hit my nose immediately. Second jar. More oil, soaking into the dry wood, running down in dark streaks. I could hear shuffling and panicked whispers from inside. Someone was crying. You wouldn't dare." The boss's voice came through the door, but it was shaking now. All that authority from before was gone. I pulled out a fire stick and struck it. A tiny flame danced to life in my hand, casting warm light across the oil-soaked wood. I held it up where they could see the glow through the cracks in the door. "Want to find out?" Boom! The door exploded outward. A bandit with bloodshot eyes came screaming out, sword raised high, charging straight at me. Pure desperation. My hand flicked. A stone crossed the distance in a blink and buried itself in the center of his forehead. His legs kept running for 2 more steps before his brain caught up with the fact that it was dead. He face-planted right at my feet. "All of you, rush him. Spread out. Don't let him throw those damn stones." The boss was shrieking from behind the doorframe. But notice, he himself wasn't stepping outside. The last 5 bandits burst out from different angles, fanning wide, swords flashing in the sunlight. They'd learned from watching their friends die, staying bunched up was suicide. They came at me from the left, the right, and dead center, trying to close the gap before I could pick them off. My wrist snapped twice. 2 stones whistled through the air and found the temples of the 2 on my far left. They dropped mid-stride, blood spraying from their heads. But the other 3 were already on top of me. 3 blades coming in simultaneously, 1 chopping down at my head, 1 slashing at my midsection, 1 sweeping low at my legs. They'd cut off every angle of escape. Nowhere to dodge. 3 swords coming at me from 3 angles. High, middle, low. No room to dodge. Most people would panic. Me? I had my signature move. I shifted my feet and launched a kick straight into the left guy's crotch. His eyes bulged out, his sword clattered to the ground, and he doubled over like a shrimp. Before his knees even hit the dirt, I spun and caught the middle guy with the same treatment. He dropped too, curling up on the ground, twitching and whimpering. The last one froze, just for a heartbeat, but that was enough. I drove my fist into his chest with everything I had. His ribcage caved in with a nasty crunch. He flew backward, coughing blood mid-air, and didn't move when he landed. Then, a sharp whistling sound from behind the doorway. Pure instinct saved me. I threw my body backward, bending at the waist like I was doing a limbo. A black crossbow bolt zipped past so close I felt the wind on my nose. It buried itself in a wooden pillar behind me, the shaft still vibrating. "You sneaky piece of—" "A hidden crossbow?" I screamed at the door. The bandit chief tossed aside his crossbow and walked out holding a massive 9-ring cleaver. The thing must have weighed 40 pounds. When he heard me calling him sneaky, his face twisted with rage. "I'm sneaky? You crept in here like a rat and murdered 20 of my brothers in the shadows, and you're calling me sneaky? Fair point, but I wasn't in the mood for debate." He roared and swung that enormous blade down at my head. The 9 rings on the back of the blade rattled with a deafening clang. I sidestepped left and hooked a punch into his ribs. It landed solid. Blood leaked from the corner of his mouth. But instead of going down, he growled and redirected his downward chop into a vicious horizontal sweep. The blade came around so fast I barely leaned back in time. The edge passed close enough to shave my nose hairs. This guy was tougher than I expected. My punch had only made him spit a little blood. He was bigger, stronger, and he actually knew how to fight. Every swing of that heavy cleaver carried terrifying force, and he could change direction mid-strike like the thing weighed nothing. I needed to get creative. When he wound up for another overhead chop, I dodged sideways and hooked my foot under a dead bandit's body, kicking it at his legs. He instinctively slashed down to clear it out of his way, and that split second of distraction was all I needed. I whipped a sharp stone at his face from point-blank range. He saw it coming but couldn't react in time. The stone punched clean through his eye socket and out the back of his skull. He stood there for a moment, frozen. One eye was a bloody hole, the other filled with pain and disbelief. His giant cleaver slipped from his fingers and hit the ground with a heavy clang. Then he toppled backward like a felled tree, raising a cloud of dust. I let out a long, shaky breath. My heart was still pounding. That crossbow bolt had come way too close. I walked over to his body, looked down at his ruined face, and gave him one last kick. Sneaky bastard. Then I headed into the main building. The place was nicer than I expected. A big chair covered in tiger skin, animal pelts on the walls, and several locked chests in the corners. This was where the real loot had to be. In the corner, the 2 young women I'd seen earlier were huddled together, shaking violently. Now that I was close, I could see them properly. One was about 16 or 17, with a delicate oval face that was pale from terror. Her silk clothes had been pulled askew during the chaos, showing a bare shoulder and quite a bit more. I swallowed hard and looked away. I tried smiling and telling them the bad guys were all dead, they were safe now. But I was covered head to toe in blood, with red smeared across my face, grinning with white teeth. I probably looked more terrifying than the bandits. They shrank away from me even harder. So much for the heroic rescue moment. I gave up trying to be charming and went straight for the locked chests. The first one wouldn't open, so I kicked it. The lock held, but the whole chest flipped over. Tough lock. I channeled my internal energy into a punch and shattered it. Inside, dirty clothes. Not a single coin. I broke open the rest one by one. Moldy dried food. Rusty, broken weapons. The best I found was a small wooden box with a few dozen taels of loose silver. I stood there bouncing the pitiful handful of silver in my palm, face dark as a thundercloud. This fortress had been operating for over 10 years, and this was all they had. I'd risked my life, spent hours sneaking and killing, nearly got a crossbow bolt through the throat. For this, I kicked an empty chest across the room in frustration. Then a tiny, trembling voice came from the corner. "Sir, could you let us go?" I turned around. The braver girl was looking up at me with huge, terrified eyes. They genuinely thought I was just another villain. Something mischievous clicked in my brain. "Oh, so you think I'm a bad guy? Fine. Let me play the part." I deliberately dropped the silver back into the chest with a loud clatter that made them both flinch. Then I walked toward them slowly, each step making the wooden floor creak under my weight. Every creak made them shrink a little more. I stopped right in front of them, my shadow falling over their huddled bodies completely. "Leave?" I leaned down close, putting on my ugliest grin, blood-stained face, white teeth gleaming. "I went through all that trouble to save you from those bandits, and you don't even say thank you? You just want to walk out? There's no such thing as a free rescue in this world." The brave one was shaking so hard her teeth were chattering, barely managing to stammer out, Thank you, sir. Thank you for saving us," I snorted. "Just words?" I reached out and tilted her chin up with one finger, forcing her to look at me. The girl trembled when my cold fingertip touched her chin. She couldn't even speak. I was having way too much fun with this. I lowered my voice to sound as threatening as possible. "Two pretty girls like you. It'd be a waste to just let you go. From now on, you'll stay here and serve me. During the day, you'll cook and wash my clothes. At night." I did my best villain laugh. The brave one burst into tears, big drops rolling down her cheeks. The other one, she straight up fainted, just collapsed right there on the floor. My evil grin froze on my face. Okay, I went too far. These poor girls had just escaped from real monsters, and here I was traumatizing them all over again for a cheap laugh. A wave of guilt hit me, mixed with a healthy dose of embarrassment. Hey, I was joking, just kidding around. I tried switching to a friendly smile. "Do I really look like a bad guy?" The brave one looked up at me through her tears, took a long look at the blood covering every inch of my face and clothes, and nodded slowly. "Yes," I scratched my head. "Fair enough." I told them to go outside and search the dead bandits' bodies for anything valuable, and after that they could leave. The brave one grabbed onto that offer like a drowning person grabs a rope. She slapped and shook her friend awake, and the two of them stumbled out of the building as fast as their legs could carry them. A few minutes later, they came back with a pile of money pouches and some small pieces of jewelry. I dumped everything out and counted it up. About 130 or 40 taels total, including what I'd already found in the chests. I frowned hard. This was everything. A bandit fortress that terrorized the region for over a decade, and this was their entire fortune? I nearly gotten killed by a crossbow bolt for this. Can we go now?" The brave one asked in a tiny voice. Yeah, go." I waved them off, thoroughly disappointed. They bolted for the door like someone had lit a fire under them. But just as they reached the yard, wait, they both froze mid-step. They turned around so slowly it was almost comical, their faces filled with pure despair. They were convinced I'd changed my mind and was going to keep them after all. But I just grabbed a handful of loose silver from the pile, maybe 15 taels, and tossed it at their feet. "You two had a rough time. Take this for travel money and get yourselves home." They stared at the silver on the ground, then back at me, the blood-soaked demon who'd just slaughtered 24 men and couldn't process what was happening. I clicked my tongue impatiently, and they snapped out of it, scooping up the coins and bowing to me over and over. "Now go, for real this time." They hurried out. But halfway across the yard, the brave one suddenly stopped. She bit her lip, whispered something to her companion, and then, to my surprise, came back. I raised an eyebrow. "What? Not enough?" No. She waved her hands frantically. Then she caught her breath and said quickly, "Sir, I know where the bandit chief hid his real treasure." Every cell in my body woke up. I jumped to my feet and grabbed her arm without thinking, pulling her close. "Where?" "Ow, sir, you're hurting me." "Oh, sorry." I let go, but my eyes were practically burning holes in her face. She rubbed her wrist and pointed at the tiger skin chair in the center of the room. She walked over, crouched down, felt around the base of one leg, and pulled something. A grinding sound filled the room. A section of wall behind the chair slowly swung inward, revealing a dark passage. These bandits had a secret room. Clever bastards. I wasn't stupid enough to go first, though. I gestured for her to lead the way. She understood and didn't seem offended. She picked up her skirt and walked into the darkness. I followed close behind. The passage was short, maybe 15 steps. Another hidden door opened, and what I saw inside made my heart nearly explode out of my chest. The secret room wasn't big, but it was packed. On the left, chests overflowing with fine silk and satin fabrics, all shimmering in the lamplight. On the right, shelves lined with antique vases, jade pieces, and carved stone artwork. And in the center of the room, several large red-lacquered chests. One was cracked open just enough for me to see the gleam of silver ingots inside. Jackpot! I dove at the chests and plunged my hands into the pile of cold, heavy silver. The weight of real wealth between my fingers was intoxicating. I punched the locks off every other chest one by one. First chest, packed to the brim with silver ingots, neatly stacked, gleaming under the oil lamps. My jaw dropped. Second chest, gold. Not a full chest, but half full of bright yellow gold bars that nearly blinded me. Gold. Third chest, jewelry. Gold hairpins, jade bracelets, pearl necklaces, gemstones of every color. A treasure trove. I was in heaven. This was it. This was the real haul. Everything I'd fought for, every risk I'd taken, it was all worth it for this moment. Behind me, the girl quietly bowed and started to slip away. Wait. She flinched, probably expecting the worst again. But I grabbed her hand, reached into the silver chest, scooped up a big handful of heavy silver ingots, and shoved them into her arms. Then I plucked a gold hairpin from the jewelry chest and stuck it in her hair. For you. Now you can go. She stood there, arms full of cold silver, a gold pin in her hair, completely speechless. She looked down at the fortune I'd just handed her, then back up at my blood-covered face. Sir, you're a good person. She gave me the deepest bow I'd ever seen, then turned and walked away without looking back, clutching her treasure to her chest. I touched the dried blood on my face, then glanced back at the mountains of gold and silver behind me. Good person? Being rich is way more important than being good. The sun was setting by the time I made it back to Blackwind City. My first stop was the Welcome Inn restaurant. I pushed through the door curtain, and the entire place went dead silent. Every single person froze and stared at me. Can't blame them. My white robe was covered in dark red bloodstains. My face was smeared with dried blood, and I probably smelled like a slaughterhouse. A big guy near the door spilled his drink. A mother covered her child's eyes. The shopkeeper's fake smile turned to stone. They all thought I was either a bandit come to rob the place or some gang killer on a rampage. I walked straight to the counter. 5 roast chickens, 3 pounds of braised beef, 20 meat buns, and a jug of wine. To go. The whole restaurant short-circuited. With a face like mine, the expected line was, hand over all your money, not a food order. And such a big one at that. The shopkeeper was sweating bullets. The waiter's legs almost gave out when I tossed a silver ingot on the counter. It rolled and left a trail of blood on the wood. Nobody wanted to touch it. I had to give them an impatient look before the waiter finally picked it up with 2 trembling fingers, like it might bite him, and scrambled to the kitchen. I leaned against the counter, happily planning how I'd brag about today's adventure to my wives. I didn't notice that the entire restaurant stayed silent for a full 15 minutes after I left. Meanwhile, back at home, my women were losing their minds with worry. Su Qinghua had been standing at the gate since sunset, staring down the dark alley, waiting for me. The sky had gone completely black, and I still wasn't back. Qin Rushue was leaning in the doorway, clutching the pity flower sword, tapping it nervously, trying to stay calm for everyone's sake. Fifth sister-in-law volunteered to go search for me, but the other 2 shut that down immediately. Sending women out into this dangerous city at night would be even worse. 9 women, all helpless, all scared, sitting in silence. Then they heard my voice echoing down the alley. Sisters, wives, I'm home. I came swaggering around the corner, a stack of huge oil paper packages in one hand and a greasy roast chicken leg in the other, chewing away with sauce dripping down my chin. Su Qinghua's face lit up. She hiked up her skirt and sprinted toward me, throwing herself into my arms. For a moment, everything was warm and perfect. Then she smelled the blood. She pulled back, looked down at my clothes in the lamplight, and saw the bloodbath I was wearing. Her scream could have woken the whole neighborhood. She shoved me away, face white as paper, eyes wild with panic. Where are you hurt? Does it hurt? Let me see. She was running circles around me like a headless chicken, lifting my arms, feeling my legs, trying to pull open my shirt to check my chest. She couldn't find a single wound, but wouldn't stop searching. Then the other 8 came rushing out. They saw the blood and completely panicked too. Everyone was grabbing at me, trying to drag me inside, yelling over each other. I stood there with a chicken leg in my mouth, chewing, staring at 9 gorgeous women losing their minds over me. It took me a second to figure out why. Oh, right. The blood. I'd been so excited about bringing home the food and treasure that I completely forgot I looked like I'd crawled out of a horror scene. Calm down, calm down. It's not my blood. I jumped up and down to prove I was fine. See? Perfectly healthy. Not a scratch. I held up the food packages and the smell of roast meat drifted out. Come on, stop crying. The chicken's getting cold. Let's go inside. Wait till you see what I brought home. I tossed the oil paper packages on the table like a hero returning with treasure. 5 golden roast chickens, a big slab of braised beef wrapped in lotus leaf, and 20 steaming meat buns. The table practically disappeared under the mountain of food. 9 pairs of beautiful eyes locked onto that pile and didn't move. Several stomachs growled loudly. These women hadn't had a real meal in who knows how long. I launched into my heroic tale. How 3 armed bandits jumped out of the bushes. How the one-eyed leader swung his blade at my face. How I took them all down with my devastating dragon tail whip technique. Nobody was listening. They were all staring at the chicken like it owed them money. I was really getting into my story, pounding my chest for dramatic effect, when something slipped out of my robe and fell to the floor with a soft plop. That pink silk undergarment I'd taken from One-Eye Biao. The room went so quiet I could hear dust settling. 9 pairs of eyes slowly moved from the chicken to the floor. Then to me. I broke into a cold sweat and snatched it up lightning fast. Don't misunderstand. This is a gift I bought for Qinghua. Her nightgown got accidentally torn last night, so I figured I should replace it. Every woman in the room turned red from head to toe. A few of the younger sisters-in-law buried their faces in their hands, ears glowing pink. Su Qinghua looked ready to murder me. She pinched my arm hard, grabbed the thing from my hand without looking at it, and stuffed it under her pillow so fast it was like a magic trick. Just eat. I'm going to wash up. I escaped the room before anyone could kill me. That was all it took. The moment I left, the feeding frenzy began. 5th sister-in-law tore off a chicken leg first, bit into it, and her eyes nearly rolled back with happiness. She almost cried from how good it tasted. After that, all manners went out the window. Everyone dove in, tearing chicken apart, grabbing buns, stuffing their faces. When I came back, the table was a battlefield of bones and crumbs. But every face was glowing with satisfaction. The way they looked at me had changed too. Less fear and awkwardness, more warmth and trust. This troublesome little brother-in-law had actually put food on the table. Su Qinghua quietly set aside a whole chicken and some buns for me before anyone could claim them. Watching her clean up, so graceful and caring, made something warm settle in my chest. Feeding 9 wives was exhausting, but it felt pretty good too. But this tiny house was a problem. There was barely room to breathe, let alone have any privacy. Everyone slept on the same platform, shoulder to shoulder. I needed to buy a proper house soon. The bandit treasure in my system storage could easily cover it. But tonight I needed to cultivate. I spotted 2 bamboo poles in the corner and an old faded bedsheet. I rigged them up between the wall and a roof beam, creating the world's most pathetic curtain partition around our sleeping spot. Someone giggled. Then whispers broke out. Is he building a wedding chamber? So he does know how to be embarrassed after all. Look at Big Sister's face. She's red down to her neck. Su Qinghua looked like she wanted the earth to swallow her whole. I cleared my throat and announced that I had big news for tomorrow, but wouldn't tell them tonight because they'd be too excited to sleep. Qin Rushua pointed at my flimsy curtain and said dryly, as long as you 2 keep it quiet tonight, we'll sleep just fine. The whole room exploded with laughter. Su Qinghua stomped her foot in embarrassment. I blew out the candle to hide my own red face, grabbed her hand in the darkness, and pulled her behind the curtain. In the quiet that followed, the thin cloth swayed gently in the moonlight. Rhythmically. for quite a while. Early morning, barely light outside, and I was already up banging a copper basin with a stick, screaming for everyone to wake up. The sisters-in-law were not happy. Fifth sister-in-law burrowed under her blanket like a mole. Fourth sister-in-law sat up with murder in her eyes, hair going every direction. Chin Rushua just opened her eyes slowly. She hadn't really slept at all. Apparently our curtain barrier hadn't blocked much sound. Su Qingwei came storming out wrapped in nothing but a thin blanket, barefoot on the cold ground, yelling at me to stop making noise. She looked incredible. Messy hair, flushed cheeks, the blanket barely containing her curves. I couldn't help myself. My dear wife, coming out in our battle sheet to greet me? How romantic. She turned scarlet, called me shameless, and bolted back inside like a startled rabbit. Once everyone was finally seated around our wobbly table, I prepared to make my grand announcement. All 8 sisters-in-law had dark circles under their eyes again, looking completely drained. They were probably wondering what kind of animal I was, keeping Su Qingwei up half the night and then bouncing around at dawn like nothing happened. And they definitely noticed that Su Qingwei somehow looked even more beautiful and radiant than before, which made zero sense. I cleared my throat dramatically. Today, I have a major announcement about our family's future. I paused for effect, expecting gasps of anticipation. 9 women just sat there, chins propped on hands, dead-eyed. Third sister-in-law yawned right in my face. This audience was terrible. I slammed the table. We're buying a mansion today. They slowly looked up, blinked, and said in unison, oh, that's it. Su Qingwei tugged my sleeve gently and told me to stop joking around. She said the few dozen tales I'd brought home yesterday was already amazing, enough for years if we were careful. A house in Blackwind City? Way beyond our means. Don't even dream about it. They all thought I was exaggerating. Every face said the same thing. Sure, honey, whatever you say. My dignity was under attack. Fine. Time for a little shock and awe. I'm not joking, I yelled and waved my hand at the air. A heavy wooden chest materialized out of thin air and slammed onto the table with a massive thud. The rickety table couldn't handle the weight. One leg snapped clean off. The chest crashed to the floor and the lid popped open, sending bright silver ingots rolling everywhere across the room. The whole floor was covered in gleaming white silver. Dead silence. 9 mouths fell open into perfect O shapes. 9 pairs of eyes went wide as dinner plates. Su Qingwei was the first to recover, pointing at the silver with a trembling finger. Lynn M.O, the bandits you robbed yesterday had. This much, I scoffed. Those broke losers? They only had a few dozen tails between them. This is from when I wiped out their entire fortress. What? Chin Rushua shouted before anyone else could react. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. She understood better than anyone what raiding a whole bandit fortress meant. That wasn't the same as beating up a few thugs on a trail. I leaned close to Su Qingwei with my most smug grin. So, your husband's pretty impressive, right? And I gave her backside a cheeky squeeze. She smacked my chest with her little fist, face burning red. Then, just to drive the point home, I waved my hand again, and every single silver ingot vanished from the floor, sucked back into my system space like they'd never existed. That trick shocked them even more than the money itself. Things appearing and disappearing from thin air, they looked like their brains had completely shut down. I clapped my hands, riding the high of the century's greatest show-off moment. Flexing in front of beautiful women? Nothing better in the world. Don't bother packing any of this junk. We're replacing everything. Follow me, right now. First stop, the best restaurant in the city for a proper breakfast. Second stop, buying the biggest mansion in Blackwind City. I marched out the door like a conquering hero. Nobody followed. I turned around. All 9 of them were still standing inside like statues, completely frozen, convinced they were dreaming. Su Qingwei had her hand over her heart, still trying to process everything. Chin Rushua was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Come on, what are you waiting for? They didn't budge. So I grabbed the copper basin again. Clang, clang, clang. That snapped them out of it. They looked at each other in bewilderment, slowly stood up like sleepwalkers, and followed me out. But the moment we stepped into the yard, boom. Our already crumbling gate was kicked to pieces from the outside, with splinters flying everywhere. We barely made it to the yard when the gate exploded inward, with flying everywhere. Dozens of thugs poured in, armed with clubs and weapons, filling every inch of our tiny courtyard. The sisters-in-law, who had just recovered from the silver shock, went pale all over again. The crowd parted and outstepped the biggest guy I'd ever seen. 8 feet tall, shoulders like a bull, a nasty knife scar across his face, and a heavy executioner's blade in his hand. This was Wang Daba, Wang Erba's older brother. Behind him, a few lackeys carried Wang Erba himself on a bamboo chair. But something was very, very wrong with Wang Erba. His face was caked in powder. He was holding a pink handkerchief, pinching his fingers daintily, and speaking in a high squeaky voice. "Big brother, that's him. That's the little animal who did this to me. You have to avenge me, Wah." My groin kick had apparently done some permanent damage to his manhood. He wasn't the same man anymore. Literally. Wang Daba's temple was visibly throbbing as he looked at his brother's new personality. He'd been out of town collecting debts and came back to find his brother had been turned into this. His reputation was on the line. He pointed his blade at me. "You're Lynn M.O?" I told the sisters-in-law to get inside and lock the door immediately. They listened, all except Qin Rushue, who stood at the doorway gripping the pity flower sword, cold as ice, ready to fight. "Go inside too, second sister-in-law," I said. She shook her head. "There are too many of them." I gave her a reassuring look. "Just guard the door. Don't let any of these flies get past you. Leave the rest to me." She studied my face for a long moment. I could see the questions swirling in her eyes. How had I changed so much in just a few days? Beating thugs, wiping out bandit fortresses, conjuring treasure from thin air. Who was I really? But she pushed it aside. "Be careful. If it goes bad, fall back and we'll fight together." She turned and planted herself at the door, sword angled down, eyes sharp as blades. Out in the yard, Wang Daba was getting impatient. "Done whispering sweet nothings with your woman? You're about to die, kid. Kneel down. Kowtow 100 times to my brother. Crawl between my legs, and maybe I'll make your death quick." I finished settling things with Qin Rushue, turned around, and stuck a finger in my ear like I hadn't heard him. "What was that?" "Speak up. The wind's too loud." His lackeys cursed at me. Wang Daba raised a hand to shut them up and gave me a savage grin. I like guys with guts, because when I crush their bones, the sound is so much better. I looked around at the dozens of thugs surrounding me. "All of you against little old me? That's no fun. How about a one-on-one fight?" Wang Daba burst out laughing like I'd told the funniest joke in history. "One-on-one? Are you 3 years old? I've been in this business for decades, and that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." All his men roared with laughter too. That was exactly what I wanted. The instant every single one of them let their guard down, I exploded forward. My body shot across the yard like an arrow, closing the distance to Wang Daba in a blink. No tricks, no fancy moves, just my trusty signature technique. I loaded everything into my right leg and drove it straight between his legs. Secret technique, groin destroyer, clang. Wait, clang? It felt like kicking an iron plate. A massive shock wave rippled back through my leg, numbing it from toe to hip. What the hell? I bounced backward immediately, putting distance between us. My foot was tingling. Wang Daba and his men recovered from the surprise, and then they started cheering. "Nice try, you sneaky little rat. Haha, almost fell for it. Boss is a genius." Wang Daba looked down at his crotch with the biggest, most relieved grin I'd ever seen. Then he slapped himself right between the legs. Clang, the sound of metal. "You think I'm stupid, boy? My brother already told me about your dirty tricks. So I spent good money on this, an iron crotch guard." He thrust his hips forward proudly. "And it's not just me." He swept his hand across the yard. Every single one of his men grinned and slapped their own crotches. Clang, 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 clang. The sound of dozens of iron cups being proudly hammered echoed through the yard like the world's most disturbing percussion ensemble. I stood there, completely stunned. Iron crotch guards. Every single one of them. I'd lived 2 lives and never seen anything like this. This was the Black Wind City Iron Underpants boy band. Wang Daba was gloating. "Your strongest move has been completely neutralized. What are you going to do now?" I silently called up my system panel. Body tempering stage 1, perfection. And right next to it, 3 beautiful golden words, ready to break through. Last night's marathon session with Su Qingyue had pushed me all the way to the peak. I'd been too exhausted to break through then, so I just collapsed and slept. But now seemed like the perfect time. System. Breakthrough. A warm flood of energy detonated inside me. It felt like a dam bursting. Power surged through every vein, every bone, every fiber of muscle. My skeleton crackled and popped like firecrackers, reorganizing itself, becoming denser, harder, more explosive. Every muscle fiber tightened and expanded with terrifying new strength. It was incredible, better than anything I'd felt before, even better than last night. The whole process took maybe 2 seconds. Wang Daba had been about to mock me for standing still like an idiot, but then he felt it. Something had changed. I was the same person, but the air around me was different now. If before I was a dagger hidden in its sheath, now I was an unsheathed blade radiating killing intent. An invisible pressure rolled off me like a wave. Wang Daba's smirk faltered. For the first time, genuine fear flickered in his eyes. I rolled my neck slowly. The joints popped, crisp and loud. Then I smiled. Wide, bright, and absolutely dangerous. Iron underpants, huh? Wang Daba sensed something was wrong. He gripped his blade tight, muscles tense, eyes locked on me. Then I moved. After the breakthrough, my body was on a completely different level. I crossed the distance between us in the blink of an eye, literally. 1 second I was standing several meters away, the next I was right in his face. He didn't even see me move. His eyes went wide with shock. His brain screamed at him to back away, but his body couldn't keep up. I was already swinging my leg. This time, I poured every ounce of my newly upgraded internal energy into my foot. Right before impact, I could actually see the air ripple in front of my toes like heat haze. Same target as always. Straight between the legs. Crack, then thud. The first sound was the iron crotch guard shattering like cheap pottery. The second was my foot connecting with what was behind it. Wang Daba's eyeballs practically popped out of his skull. His mouth opened wide, but nothing came out. Just white foam mixed with stomach acid dribbling from the corners of his lips. His giant blade clattered to the ground. His knees buckled, and he collapsed, curling into a ball on the dirt, twitching violently. The yard went completely silent. Behind me, I heard Qin Rushue's tiny gasp. Beating up Wang Erba was one thing. She could accept that. But kicking clean through a thick iron plate? That broke her brain entirely. As for the dozens of thugs who'd been proudly clanging their iron cups just seconds ago, every single one turned to stone. Did he just? One of them stammered, voice shaking. Got kicked through it. That was the Zhang blacksmith's Diamond Eternal Deluxe model. 1 finger thick of forged iron. The boss even paid extra for the reinforced version. That's not a leg. That's a battering ram. Every single pair of eyes drifted from Wang Daba's crumpled body down to my leg. Then, in perfect unison, every man in the yard instinctively felt a cold breeze between his own legs. Wang Erba broke the silence with his squeaky new voice, rushing to his brother's side. Big brother, are you okay? It hurts. I know, just hang in there. I understand. I understand this pain better than anyone. I slowly lowered my leg and tapped my foot on the ground, feeling the incredible power flowing through my body. Breaking through to the second stage had been a massive upgrade. The difference in speed and strength was like night and day. My kick had literally shattered forged iron. To make sure everyone got the message, I casually kicked the air a couple more times. Whoosh, whoosh. Each kick made a sharp cracking sound as it broke the sound barrier. So, I said with my most innocent smile, anyone else want to test my leg technique? Every thug in the yard jumped backward in unison, hands flying to cover their crotches, faces white with terror. Nobody moved. Not one person. Following a boss was supposed to mean easy money and bullying weak people, not gambling your future manhood against a human siege engine. This deal was the worst trade in history. Wang Erba screamed at them from his chair. Attack. All of you attack. He's only one person. Rush him and chop him to pieces. Nobody budged. A few guys in the back row had already started inching toward the gate. Then one of them grabbed his stomach. Oh no, my belly. I ate something bad this morning. Gotta hit the outhouse. Be right back. He bolted out the gate without looking back. That opened the floodgates. Me too. Terrible stomach cramps. Must have been the wine last night. Sorry, boss. Nature calls. Acute gastroenteritis spread through the gang like a plague. Within a minute, every single one of them had fled the yard clutching their stomachs, tripping over each other to escape. Wang Erba was shaking with rage, screaming after them. Useless. Every last one of you. What's the point of my tyrant gang if you all run at the first sign of trouble? He was still screaming when my shadow fell over him. He looked up. I looked down. Slap. So you like calling for backup, huh? I shook out my hand. Slap. Backhand this time. Go ahead, call some more. Slap. Even harder. What happened? Keck out your tongue. Wah. Please. Stop hitting me. Wang Erba's face had swollen into a lumpy pumpkin, blood mixing with his drool. He covered his face with both hands, sobbing. Sir, Grandpa, I was wrong. Please, any more and my face will be mashed potatoes. I raised my hand again. He flinched with relief when I paused. Slap. Fourth one, right on target. You don't get to decide when I stop. Then I started searching his pockets. He squirmed and squealed. What are you doing? In broad daylight. I'm not that kind of person. I nearly threw up. Could you please stop being disgusting? Fighting down my nausea, I pulled out a heavy money pouch from his robes and made it vanish into my system space. Wang Erba blinked at his empty hand, confused, probably thinking his swollen eyes were playing tricks. Got anything else? He clutched his chest protectively like a maiden guarding her honor. I dry-heaved and moved on to the real prize, Wang Daba. He was still on the ground, soaked in cold sweat, iron shrapnel from the destroyed cup embedded in his flesh, bleeding badly. He actually looked at me with hope in his eyes. Brother, please, take me to a doctor. I think I can still be saved. I ignored his begging and pulled a large money pouch and a ring of brass keys from his clothes. I bounced the pouch in my hand, nice and heavy, then made it disappear. I dangled the keys. What are these for? The Tyrant Gang's treasure vault. His eyes brightened. Brother, listen, take me to a doctor and you can have anything in the vault. Half. No, 70%. I looked at him like he was the stupidest person alive. Why would I take you to a doctor? If you die, I get 100%. You. He choked on his own rage, eyes rolling back. Kid, leave a man some dignity, and someday, I kicked him in the stomach before he could finish his threat. The rest of his words came out as a painful groan. Job done. I stood up, dusted off my hands, and noticed a few nosy neighbors peeking through the broken gate. I yelled at them to come help. They tried to run. Don't even think about it. I know exactly which houses you live in. I have an excellent memory, and I hold grudges. While me making house calls, they shuffled back with the saddest faces I've ever seen. I tossed them some silver for their trouble and pointed at Wang Erba in his chair. Pick him up. You're coming with me. Then I turned toward the house and called out, Sisters, let's go. Time to open some loot boxes. News travels fast in the slums. Within minutes, the whole neighborhood knew I'd kicked through Wang Daba's reinforced iron crotch guard. By the time we arrived at the Tyrant Gang's headquarters, the place was already in chaos. The gang members were looting their own base. Guys were fighting over porcelain vases, dragging away furniture, practically peeling the paint off the walls. The ship was sinking, and every rat was grabbing what it could. Then we walked in. Me, 9 beautiful women, and Wang Erba being carried on his rickety bamboo chair. Wang Erba lost his mind when he saw his own men robbing the place. He shrieked at them in that squeaky new voice of his about loyalty and gratitude, but nobody cared. Their boss was crippled for life, and the second-in-command had been turned into whatever Wang Erba was now. Why stick around and wait for me to come collecting? One thug carrying a bronze incense burner tried slipping past me. I backhanded him without even looking. He spun around twice and dropped. Everybody out. 2 words, spoken quietly. The whole yard went still. Then suddenly everyone remembered urgent appointments, stomach aches, mothers calling them home for dinner. They dropped everything and vanished. Just like that, the entire Tyrant Gang compound was ours. It was a decent-sized place, 4 or 5 courtyards deep, though decorated with the tackiest taste I'd ever seen. Pure nouveau riche garbage. I turned to the sisters-in-law and told them to help themselves to anything they wanted. Su Qingyue tugged my sleeve nervously. Isn't this wrong? Taking other people's things? I put on my most righteous face. These aren't other people's things. Everything here was stolen from poor families in this city. We're returning stolen goods to the people. This is justice. This is charity. They all blinked at me, half convinced by my nonsense. Qin Rushua broke the ice first. He's right. These scumbags don't deserve any of it. She walked straight to a weapons rack, picked out a decent sword, tested its weight, and nodded approvingly. After that, the floodgates opened. 5th sister-in-law ran into a room and came out hugging a bolt of gorgeous cloud silk, squealing with delight. Soon all 9 of them were happily shopping through the compound, debating which fabrics looked best. Watching my wives go from shy and proper to enthusiastically looting a criminal headquarters. Beautiful. A good day starts with helping your women embrace their inner pirate. Then I turned to Wang Erba. Where's the treasury your brother mentioned? He pointed me to a small building in the back. I used the keys I'd taken from Wang Daba, found the right one, a big odd-shaped brass key, and opened the door. Even after the Black Wind Fortress treasure room, this one knocked me back a step. 20 square meters packed floor to ceiling with wealth. Neat stacks of silver ingots on one side. A dozen large chests overflowing with copper coins and loose silver. Gold bars and gold ingots sitting in small boxes on a table. And scattered across the floor, jade pendants, agate bracelets, pearl necklaces, emerald pieces. The quality varied, but the sheer quantity was staggering. The tyrant gang had squeezed this city dry. I closed the door behind me, rubbed my hands together, and got to work. System, let's go. I pointed at the mountain of silver. Collect. It vanished instantly, sucked into my storage space. I swept my hand over the chests of copper coins. Gone. Gold bars. Collected. Jewelry. Collected. Jade, pearls, agate. Collected, collected, collected. One after another, everything disappeared into my system space. I could feel it all stacking up inside. A genuine mountain of gold and silver filling the 100 cubic meter storage area. The rush was indescribable. I was brushing off my hands, ready to leave, when an empty box fell off a shelf. It hit the ground, and a thin piece of paper slid out from a hidden compartment in the bottom. I picked it up. A property deed? I walked out of the treasury empty-handed. Well, as far as anyone could see. The neighbors and Wang Erba stared at me in confusion. I'd gone into a room full of treasure and came out with nothing? Little did they know, every last coin was sitting in my system space. I tossed the neighbors a few tin-tail silver ingots as a tip. They nearly cried with joy. The sisters-in-law came drifting over, all smiles. Su Qinghua was wearing a gorgeous pearl necklace she'd found, and she puffed out her chest proudly to show it off. Does it look nice? It does. But you look even better. She blushed and pretended to be annoyed. Qin Rushue had collected an armful of antique swords and blades on top of the pity flower sword. Fifth sister-in-law was hugging bolts of cloud silk like a kid with Christmas presents. Everyone was chattering happily about their finds. Then I turned my attention to Wang Erba. I pulled out the property deed I'd found and waved it in front of his face with the warmest, friendliest smile I could manage. So, buddy, this deed is for this compound, right? And it's in your name? He nearly jumped out of his skin. My friendly face scared him way more than my angry face. Turns out his father, Old Man Wang, had favored him and put the property in his name before passing away, which meant Wang Erba was the legal owner. So, interested in selling? I asked, patting his shoulder so hard his bones creaked. His brain exploded. He knew exactly where this was heading. And no, not really. I raised one eyebrow and squeezed harder. Actually, if the price is right, maybe we could work something out. How much do you want? He held up 5 trembling fingers. F5,000 taels? I just went, For 1,600? He was about to cry. Why don't you just name a price, sir? I held up one finger. His eyes popped. 1,000? That's robbery. This place cost my father over 5,000 to build. It's worth at least 6 or 7,000 on the market. I shook my head. Not 1,000. Hope flickered in his eyes for half a second. Maybe I was being generous? 100, he asked weakly, already dying inside. Fine, 100 taels would at least buy a shack somewhere far away. Nope, not 100 either. He completely broke down, grabbing my pants leg, tears and snot running down his face. Just tell me the number. Put me out of my misery. I held up the finger again. 1 tael. His voice cracked so hard it sounded like a cat being stepped on. He stared at my finger, lips twitching uncontrollably. Then his eyes rolled back and he fainted dead away, slumping sideways off the bamboo chair. Hey, don't you die on me. I jumped back in panic. Someone pinch him. Wake him up. Quick. He absolutely could not die before signing the deed over. That would ruin everything. The neighbors rushed over, one pinching pressure points, one slapping his face. After several solid smacks, Wang Erba's eyes fluttered open. And immediately, he started wailing like the world was ending. Just kill me. Stick a knife in me and get it over with. What did I do to deserve this? He was sobbing so dramatically that anyone walking by would have thought he was some innocent victim being bullied by a monster. Which, honestly, wasn't entirely wrong. Stop crying, or I'll cut your tongue out. Wang Erba's wailing stopped instantly, like someone hit the mute button. Just hiccups left. I crouched down and told him I'd raise my offer since he looked so pathetic. His eyes lit up with hope. Then I added that if he refused again, I'd give him another kick to match his brother's. I held up 5 fingers. F500 tails, he whispered hopefully. 5 tails, his lips started trembling. He was about to cry again. Don't you dare, I barked. He somehow swallowed his tears, face turning purple from the effort. I leaned in close, and this time he could feel the killing intent rolling off me. Survival instinct 1. I'll sell, he whimpered, like those 2 words drained his soul. I immediately switched back to my friendliest face. See? That wasn't so hard. I slapped his shoulder so hard, he almost collapsed. Then I generously offered to let him stay at our old broken shack until he got back on his feet. He wanted to say that dump wasn't fit for dogs, but survival instinct kicked in again. Thank you, sir. You're so kind. Behind me, I could hear the sisters-in-law whispering. Is he extorting that man? He's worse than Wang Erba ever was. His smile is giving me chills. I didn't care. I sent one of the neighbors to fetch a property agent, a middleman called Full Tooth Quan, who handled real estate transactions in this area. The guy showed up, took one look at the scene. A crying man in a chair, me standing over him grinning, 9 gorgeous women whispering nervously in the background, and immediately understood the situation. Don't ask questions, don't make eye contact, just stamp the papers and leave alive. He laid out the documents and ink on a table someone brought over. Wang Erba, come sign, I said sweetly. Wang Erba stared at the document. The words, 5 taels of silver, were written right there in big black characters. His hands shook so violently he dropped the brush 3 times. I lost patience. I grabbed his hand, picked up the brush myself, dipped it in ink, and wrote his name for him in my own handwriting. Then I mashed his thumb into the ink pad and stamped it onto the paper. The agent watched with twitching eyelids, mentally chanting prayers to every god he knew. I signed my own name, pressed my own thumbprint, and handed the papers over for the official seal. The agent stamped it at record speed, split the deed in 2, shoved my copy at me, and practically teleported out of the compound. When Wang Erba saw the deed leave his hands for good, he deflated completely. He slumped in his chair like a punctured balloon, staring at nothing, mumbling to himself. Gone. It's all gone. My mansion. Gone. Everything his father had spent a lifetime cheating and stealing to build, sold for the price of a nice dinner. I felt zero sympathy. When dealing with bad people, you have to be worse. I called the neighbors over. Take our friend Wang Erba to his new home. They were thrilled. Everyone in this neighborhood hated the guy. They picked him up like a dead fish and carried him away. Once he was gone, it finally sank in for the sisters-in-law. We have our own house. 5th sister-in-law covered her mouth, eyes wide. Su Qingwei was the first to snap out of it. She lunged forward, snatched the deed from my hands, and read it with huge eyes. When she saw Lynn M.O written in the buyer's column, she nearly screamed. It's real. It's real. We have a home. She threw herself at me, wrapping her arms around my neck, hanging off me, jumping up and down. The impact of certain soft parts of her body against my chest was making it very hard to think straight. The other 8 crowded around too, touching the deed, hugging each other, crying and laughing at the same time. The whole yard was a mess of happy tears and excited chatter. Hey, I can't breathe, I gasped, eyes rolling. I reached down to steady Su Qingwei and may have grabbed something I shouldn't have. She yelped, turned bright red, and jumped off me like she'd been shocked. I caught my breath, looked at all 9 of them celebrating, and cleared my throat. Ladies, who said we're living here? The sisters-in-law froze when I said we weren't living here. Su Qingwei looked up at me, confused. Then why did you go through all that trouble? I waved the deed in front of them. This is called an investment. I bought this place for 5 taels. We fix it up a little, sell it for 6 or 7,000. Easy money. It took a second for that to sink in. When it did, they all stared at me with their mouths open, like they were seeing me for the first time. Anyway, I said, we've been running around all morning on empty stomachs. Let's go eat. I took them to Gathering Fortune Tower, the fanciest, most expensive restaurant in all of Blackwind City. 3 stories of polished redwood, carved beams, gold-trimmed signs. The kind of place where only rich people dined. The waiter almost lost his professional smile when he saw us walk in. One young guy in plain clothes leading 9 stunning women. He had no idea what to make of us. I could tell he was sizing us up. Our clothes were worn and faded, but the women behind me were absolute knockouts. Su Qingyue with her pearl necklace and graceful walk. Qin Ruxiue, tall and athletic, carrying swords with an ice-cold expression. Little fifth sister-in-law clutching her silk fabrics, eyes darting around curiously like a baby rabbit. Any one of them would stop traffic. All 9 together was like a bomb going off. The waiter was still staring when I walked up to him. "You going to seat us, or just stand there?" He snapped back to reality and started his greeting. Before he could finish, I dropped a 5-tael silver ingot in his hand. His eyes nearly popped out. 5 taels was enough for a normal family to live on for a year. His fake smile instantly became the most genuine, enthusiastic grin I'd ever seen. He practically bent in half bowing. "Sir, right this way to the VIP room." He led us upstairs, wiped the table 3 times, replaced all the dishes and cups with brand new ones, and hovered around us like we were royalty. The sisters-in-law stood awkwardly by their chairs, not sure what to do with their hands. They weren't used to nice places anymore. Years of hardship had worn away their confidence along with their fine clothes. That's exactly why I was doing this. They needed to remember who they were. Not beggars or refugees, but women who once moved through the best circles in the capital. Sometimes you have to go big to shake people out of a rut. "Sit down, everyone. What are you standing around for?" Su Qingyue smiled softly and guided the others to their seats. They sat with perfect posture, stiff and formal, still uncomfortable. When the waiter came back with the menu and started listing specials, I cut him off. "Don't bother reading that." I pulled out 5 more silver ingots and lined them up on the table. 50 taels total, neat and shiny. "Bring me one of everything you've got." The waiter stopped breathing. His legs were shaking. He grabbed the silver and sprinted to the kitchen like his life depended on it. Other diners in the restaurant were craning their necks to see into our room. The whispers started immediately. "Who is that kid? Throwing money around like that? Dressed so plain but spending like a prince. Must be some kind of hidden dragon. Have you seen the 9 women with him? Every single one is drop-dead gorgeous. Life is so unfair." I ignored all of it. I only cared about the women at my table. "Ladies, today we're royalty. Eat whatever you want, however you want. No holding back." The food came in waves. Golden roast suckling pig, rich bubbling Buddha jumps over the wall soup, steamed fish, and dozens of dishes I couldn't even name. The whole table disappeared under mountains of food. At first they ate like proper ladies, small bites, careful movements. But slowly they let go. Qin Ruxiue was the first to crack. She tore off an entire braised pork knuckle and went at it with both hands, red lips glistening with oil. Somehow she made it look cool instead of messy. Fifth sister-in-law found a plate of sweet osmanthus cakes and clutched it to her chest, stuffing her cheeks until she looked like an adorable little hamster. Su Qingyue kept her elegance, but her chopsticks were moving noticeably faster than usual. Watching her chest rise and fall with her excited breathing was making it very hard for me to concentrate on my own food. This was exactly what I wanted. Feed them well, spoil them rotten, and bit by bit, that old poise and confidence would come back. You raise daughters with luxury, and that applied here too. Outside our private room, the other customers were practically snapping their chopsticks in half from jealousy. 9 beautiful women eating, laughing, and glowing with happiness, and me in the middle of it all. We ate until noon. Plate after plate after plate. By the end, every one of my sisters-in-law had that happy glow on their faces, the kind that comes from being properly full for the first time in ages. I burped, wiped my mouth, and asked the waiter if he knew where to buy a house. The poor guy almost fell over. First I empty his kitchen, now I want real estate? He pointed me to the biggest property agency in the city, a place called Universal Trade Agency on the east side of town, and offered to guide us there. I tossed him another silver ingot for the tip. On the way, little fifth sister-in-law tugged my sleeve nervously. "Are we really buying a big house? How much will that cost?" I pinched her chubby little cheek and laughed. "Money's meant to be spent. Besides, with this many people, we need space." Qin Ruxiue raised an eyebrow. "What? You're giving each of us our own room?" I grinned. One room each, plus one extra large room for all of us to play cards together at night. Qin Rushua didn't get it, but Su Qinghua caught the hidden meaning instantly. Her face turned red, and she shot me a look that could kill. I pulled her close and kissed her right there on the street. The agency was impressive. Big red lacquered doors, gold lettering on the sign. The owner was a slick middle-aged guy named Qian Wankai, with a goatee and a silk robe. He took one look at my plain clothes and instantly wrote me off as some lucky fool who'd stumbled into a bit of money and was being bled dry by 9 women. He put on a condescending smile. Looking for something small? A little courtyard, maybe? Something cozy for your lively household. I wasn't in the mood to argue with a snob, so I just showed him. Clang. Several gleaming gold bars materialized on his counter out of thin air. The golden light hit his face, and his brain shut down. He picked one up with trembling hands and bit it. Real. Absolutely real. His eyes glazed over with greed. He started leaning in toward the gold bars like he was about to kiss them. I waved my hand and made them all vanish. His lips were still puckered when he realized the gold was gone. The look on his face, priceless. He nearly had a heart attack from the shock. Then he looked at me again, and everything changed. I wasn't a broke kid anymore. I was a god who made gold appear and disappear at will. Sir, honored guest. Immortal. He scrambled around the counter so fast he almost tripped. Please, this way. VIP room. Whatever you want. We have it. He screamed at his staff to bring out his personal stash of premium tea, brewed with mountain spring water. He personally carried the cups to our private room, which smelled of expensive sandalwood incense. What kind of property are you looking for, sir? I didn't answer right away. I deliberately took my time sipping tea, slowly skimming the foam off the surface, letting the silence stretch. Every quiet second made him sweat harder. Good. That's what you get for looking down on us. Finally, I set the cup down. Show me the biggest and best properties you have. He nearly broke his spine bowing. He unlocked a small wooden box and pulled out several hand-drawn bird's-eye views of luxury estates, beautifully detailed. He pointed to the first one, practically drooling as he described it. This is Moon Embrace Residence. Over 30 acres, 5 courtyards deep. The front yard is big enough to ride horses in. The back has a living water garden with pavilions, rockeries, and ponds. The previous owner was a provincial governor from the last dynasty. The feng shui is the best in all of Black Wind City. He glanced at me to check my reaction. I kept my face neutral, so he threw in the clincher. And it has its own hot spring. Perfect for you and your wives. To relax together and strengthen family bonds. Hot spring. Private. Big enough for the whole family. I slammed my hand on the table. That one. I'll take it. I slammed the table and almost jumped up when I heard hot spring, but a sharp pinch on my arm and 9 icy glares from behind brought me back to earth. I calmly picked up my tea. Let me see the others. The second property was a former scholar's villa called Listening Rain Pavilion, bamboo groves, a lotus pond, perfect for writing poetry and cultivating refined tastes. I can't even write a limerick. Pass. The third was the old city tycoon's mansion, pure gold trim Namu wood everywhere, white jade floors. Flashy and tasteless. Su Qinghua whispered that it seemed a bit too showy. That killed it. The agent Qian Wankai was starting to sweat. His 3 best properties, and I'd rejected all of them. I finished my tea in silence, set the cup down with a deliberate clink, and stood up to leave. He panicked. He literally jumped in front of the door, arms spread wide, blocking our exit. Sir, I have one more. My absolute secret treasure. He went to a landscape painting on the wall, felt around underneath it, and triggered a hidden compartment. From inside, he pulled out a black wooden box wrapped in old copper fittings, treating it like a sacred relic. Inside wasn't a floor plan, it was a full painted scroll. He unrolled it slowly, revealing a massive estate. This is the Northern Garrison Mansion, the former residence of the Grand General of the North. 80 acres, dozens of courtyards, over 100 rooms. You could marry 50 more wives and still have space. And the back section has a full military training ground with weapon racks, a horse track, and archery targets. My eyes lit up. 100 rooms? That was the perfect cultivation headquarters. But the real surprise was Qin Rushua. The moment she heard training ground, she stopped breathing. She grabbed my arm without thinking, eyes sparkling like a kid on her birthday. The system chimed. Qin Rushua closeness 1. Wait. Just from grabbing my arm, Lynn M.O. A training ground, she blurted out excitedly. You could practice martial arts there. She caught herself mid-sentence, realized she'd been talking about herself, blushed, and corrected it to be about me. Meanwhile, I noticed her hand was still on my arm. I placed my hand over hers and gave it a gentle squeeze. Soft but firm, the hands of a martial artist. Qin Rushue closeness too. 2 points from holding her hand. When I'd kissed Su Qingyue, it only went up 1. What was Qin Rushue's deal? I kept rubbing her hand, exploring this discovery. Closeness 1. Then she suddenly realized what was happening, yanked her hand away like she'd touched fire, and turned her head so fast her ponytail whipped around. Her ears were bright red. The other sisters-in-law were all suddenly very interested in their teacups and the ceiling, but none of them could hide their smirks. Cold, untouchable second sister-in-law acting like a shy schoolgirl? This was a first. Qian Wankai didn't care about our romantic drama. He was watching my face cycle from excited to confused to blank, and he was terrified the deal was dying. I let him stew for a while. Asked for more tea. Sipped it slowly. Twice. He looked like he was being fried alive. Finally he cracked. Sir, the Northern Garrison Mansion. Does it meet your approval? I set my cup down. It's impressive. His face lit up. But I'm curious, I continued. A place this good, why has it been sitting empty? Why can't anyone sell it? His smile froze. My question hit the agent right where it hurt. His face froze, and the smooth salesman act crumbled. He tried feeding me some nonsense about bad feng shui. The previous owner was a general who'd been executed for treason. The whole family wiped out. So the place was full of dark energy, and only someone with my incredible destiny could handle it. I didn't even look up from my tea. You really think I'm a 3-year-old? I laid it all out for him. By imperial law, a trader's property gets seized and sold by the government, with proceeds going to the national treasury. So how did he end up with the deed? And more importantly, who in their right mind would buy a freshly confiscated trader's mansion? Any merchant who bought it would be accused of sympathizing with rebels. Any official would get impeached. Even wealthy nobles wouldn't risk offending the emperor. This property was unsellable for at least a decade. With every sentence, another shade of color drained from his face. I'd read him like a book. The truth was, he'd bribed some official a year ago to snatch the deed on the cheap, thinking he'd flip it for a fortune. Instead, nobody would even look at it. He'd been paying maintenance costs out of his own pocket for 12 months, bleeding money the whole time. The mansion was an anchor dragging him under. Once I had him properly deflated, I made my move. I started pulling gold bars from my system space and stacking them on the table. One by one. 20 bars, 50 taels each, arranged in a gleaming pyramid that lit up the whole room. Even my sisters-in-law stopped breathing. They'd never seen wealth displayed so brazenly. The agent's brain melted. He grabbed my arm with shaking hands. Sir, original price was 8. No, 7.6. 60,000 taels. Just let me break even. I held up one finger. 10,000. He nearly fainted. That didn't even cover his bribe money and maintenance costs. But I wasn't done negotiating. I slowly started putting the gold bars back, one by one. You sell, we sign right now. You don't sell, I'll check out the agencies on South Street and West Street. I stood up and headed for the door. He lunged in front of me, arms spread, practically crying. Please, just add a little more. I put on my best. This is really hard for me. Expression and pretended to think it over painfully. Then I pulled out the property deed for Wang Erba's compound. I have this mansion in the south side. I paid 10,000 taels for it, but I don't like the layout. I'll value it at 5,000 plus 10,000 in gold. 15,000 total. Take it or leave it. And if I walk out that door, I'm never coming back. He snatched up the deed and examined it. When he saw Wang Erba's name, his eyes went wide. He knew the tyrant gang's reputation. But his businessman brain was already calculating. The compound was in the slum district, worth maybe 5,000 or 6,000 at best. But if he bought up the cheap land around it and expanded, he might actually turn a profit. And 15,000 was way better than watching the Northern Garrison Mansion eat him alive for another year. Deal, he blurted, clutching the deed like it might fly away. He drew up the papers at lightning speed, hands still trembling. I signed, pressed my thumbprint, and pushed the gold bars and Wang Erba's deed across the table. He handed me the new deed with both hands, bowing deeply. Sir, this bears our agency's official seal. The government will recognize it. The Northern Garrison Mansion is yours. I took the paper, feeling the rough texture between my fingers. 80 acres. Over 100 rooms. A training ground. Hot springs. Gardens. So this is what it feels like to have a real home in this world. After buying the mansion, I headed straight to the slave market. No time for careful selection. I pointed at every group that looked capable. Those ones. And those. All of them. Money makes everything simple. Within minutes, I had nearly 40 servants trailing behind us as we marched to the Northern Garrison Mansion. When we arrived at the front gate, everyone went silent. The place was massive, towering red doors flanked by stone lions taller than a man, and above the entrance, the name, Northern Garrison Mansion, carved in gold letters on black, radiating an aura of military power that made it hard to breathe. Su Qingyue covered her mouth with both hands. Lynn M.O, we're really going to live here? Qin Rushua said nothing, but the fire in her eyes told me everything. She was already looking past the walls, straight toward where the training ground had to be. I pushed open the heavy doors with both hands. The groan of ancient hinges echoed like a sleeping giant waking up. Welcome to our new home. Inside was beyond anything even I expected. A massive stone courtyard led to a grand main hall with the characters, loyalty and valor, hanging overhead. Then came the living quarters. Dozens of individual courtyards scattered like stars across the grounds, each one unique. Some sat beside streams, others nestled in bamboo groves, others perched against rocky hills. Fifth sister-in-law was the first to crack. Look, that courtyard has a swing. She was running around pointing at everything, squealing like a kid in a candy store. I claimed the biggest, most luxurious courtyard for myself. This is mine. No entry without permission, wives accepted. Then I pointed to the courtyard next door. That one's the reflection chamber. Anyone who makes me angry gets sent there to think about what she did. No dinner. You wouldn't dare. Qin Rushue's eyes flashed dangerously. I raised an eyebrow. Try me. She huffed and turned away, fuming but unable to do anything about it. Su Qingyue dragged me along before things escalated. We toured the back gardens, an enormous lotus pond with a pavilion in the center, connected by a winding bridge, with koi swimming lazily beneath. Then we found a huge glass greenhouse, warm as spring inside, bursting with flowers of every color and fragrance. The sisters-in-law completely lost themselves in it, chattering about petals and rare species, forgetting I existed. I coughed loudly. Hey, don't you want to see the training ground? Qin Rushua shot out of the greenhouse like a bullet. The training ground was at the very back of the estate, and it was spectacular. A stone-paved field large enough to assemble an army. Weapon racks lining every wall. Swords, spears, halberds, axes, hooks, every weapon imaginable, all gleaming with cold steel. At the far end, archery targets and empty horse stables. This wasn't a training ground. This was a small military base. Qin Rushua's breathing went ragged. She walked to the weapon rack, her eyes scanning everything, and her hand closed around a jet-black spear. One flick of her wrist, the spear tip carved a silver arc through the air with a sound like tearing silk. Then she moved. She was incredible. Her body flowed like lightning, the spear striking and sweeping with devastating precision. One moment she was thrusting forward like a dragon bursting from the sea. The next she was sweeping sideways like a tiger descending a mountain. The spear became a blur, the air screaming around it. When she finished, she stood motionless in the center of the field, sweat glistening on her temples, her usually ice-cold face flushed with fierce joy. I could see what this meant to her. Since the Lin family's fall, she'd been stripped of everything. Her weapons sold, her training abandoned, her identity as a warrior buried under survival and fear. She'd gone from dawn drills to clutching cold bread in a broken shack, thinking she'd never hold a weapon again. Now here she was, spear in hand, heart pounding, alive again. The ice in her eyes had melted completely, replaced by blazing fire. She was radiant, not just beautiful, but powerful. A war goddess. Even Su Qingyue teared up watching her. Second sister. You look so good right now. I walked over, hands behind my back, pretending to be an expert. Not bad. That spear technique reminds me of my own style back in the day. Several sisters-in-law burst out laughing. Back in my day, when I could barely breathe while lying in bed. Qin Rushua looked at me with those blazing eyes. all the coldness gone, replaced by something fierce and warm at the same time. She slammed the butt of her spear into the stone with a heavy thud. "Want to spar?" Chin Rushua wanted to test me. Ever since I punched Wang Erba across the yard and kicked through that iron cup, she'd been burning with curiosity about what I was hiding. A warrior's way of finding answers? Fight. Sure, I said. Couldn't have asked for a better excuse to get close to her. She grabbed a practice staff from the weapon rack, wood instead of steel, so she wouldn't hurt me. Sweet of her. "You're not picking a weapon?" she asked. I put my hands behind my back, trying to look mysterious. "Weapons are just tools. A true master's body, is the weapon. My specialty is hand technique." Hand technique? She'd never heard of such a thing. Neither had anyone else. Fifth sister-in-law guessed I'd learned it from a bread-kneading master. Everyone laughed. Su Qingyue called out nervously for us to go easy on each other. Then Qin Rushua attacked. She was fast, precise, and fierce. The staff screamed through the air straight at my face. But at body tempering stage 2, her movements looked like slow motion to me. I tilted my head, and the staff whistled past my ear. She switched to a sweep at my waist. I bent backward like I had no spine. Dodged again. Nice power, second sister-in-law. Just a little slow, that made her mad. Her attacks became a storm. Thrusting, slashing, sweeping, chopping. The whole training ground was filled with whistling wind and flying staff shadows. I dodged everything. I jumped, ducked, twisted, and weaved in the most ridiculous positions imaginable. She was swinging a sledgehammer at a fly, and the fly was having the time of its life. The sisters-in-law figured out pretty quickly that I wasn't even trying to fight back. I was just playing with her. After a while, her breathing got ragged and her arms started shaking from exhaustion. That's when I made my move. I lunged in close, reached for her staff, and let my hand, accidentally, slide along the smooth wood until it landed right on top of hers. Closeness won. Her whole body stiffened. Her face went red instantly. "You." She tried to pull away, but I'd already stepped back, hands up innocently. "Oops. Total accident." She attacked harder, angrier. I dodged another swing and, accidentally, bumped my body into her chest. Closeness 2. "You." She swung down hard. I ducked, and my hand happened to land on her backside to steady myself. Closeness 3. HHH. She lost it completely. "Lynn M.O, you pervert." The sisters-in-law were watching with their mouths hanging open in perfect circles. Did he just grab second sisters? So shameless. She can barely stand straight. He looks so serious, though, like it really was an accident. Do you believe that? Because I don't. The closeness points were piling up beautifully, but I kept a straight face. Second sister-in-law, calm your mind. In sparring, you must never let emotions cloud your focus. Your heart is in chaos. Whose fault do you think that is? Her eyes were red with frustration. She couldn't land a single hit on me, but I kept finding new spots to, accidentally, touch. Her arm, her waist, her long legs. Each contact sent the system chiming in my head. Closeness climbed all the way to 55, then stopped. No matter what I touched, the number wouldn't budge. Everything had developed resistance. I checked the beauty gallery. She needed 60 for her profile to unlock. Just 5 more points. But every zone I'd touched was maxed out. Every zone. Except one. My eyes drifted to her chest, heaving with every labored breath behind her tight martial arts outfit. The final frontier. The most dangerous territory. If I touched there, she might actually kill me. But for the Lin family's glorious future. For the sacred mission of carrying on the bloodline. Worth the risk. "Watch out," I shouted with maximum intensity. Behold my ultimate technique. Dragon claw grasp. I vanished from where I was standing. At stage 2 speed, I was basically teleporting. Chin Rushua's eyes barely registered the blur before I was right in front of her. My hand shot out and grabbed. Her full, soft chest fit perfectly in my palm. MNH, a sound escaped her lips that was equal parts shock and something else entirely. Breathy, feminine, and devastatingly seductive. My brain went completely blank. Closeness 5. Ding. Chin Rushua closeness reached 60, profile unlocked. Time froze with my hand where it was. The softness was beyond description. Then Chin Rushua came back to life. Her face, neck, and ears turned so red I thought she might actually catch fire. Lynn M.O. Her scream could have shattered glass. She called me every name in the book: shameless, despicable, pervert, and swung her staff at my head with absolutely everything she had. Crack! The solid wooden staff broke in half over my skull. I stood there, still frozen in the dragon claw pose, blinking stupidly. I slowly pulled my hand back and scratched where she'd hit me. Huh. My head itches. Dead silence. At body tempering stage 2, a wooden stick was basically a back scratcher. But Chin Rushue didn't know that. She stared at the broken staff in her hand, then at me standing there completely unharmed, and panic replaced her anger. Are you okay? She asked, rushing forward. Then remembered why she'd hit me and spun away, fuming. Su Qingyue and everyone else came sprinting over, surrounding me. Su Qingyue grabbed my head and examined every inch of it. Not a scratch, not even a red mark. She sighed with relief, but still pinched my arm. Why can't you keep your hands to yourself? I put on my most innocent face. It's not my fault. My fighting style is called close combat entanglement technique. It only works at close range. I had zero inappropriate thoughts during the entire fight. Zero thoughts. Chin Rushue whipped back around, glaring. Then why did you squeeze my... She couldn't finish the sentence. She just stamped her foot, made a furious noise, and turned away, ears glowing red. I knew I'd pushed my luck as far as it would go today. Time to change the subject. I clapped my hands and called over all 30-something servants who'd been watching the whole spectacle. They were staring at me with pure awe. Their new master had just taken a full-force staff hit to the head and didn't even flinch. I stood up straight and addressed them. From today, I am the master of this estate. You will call me master. There are 9 mistresses of this house. You will address them as First Lady, Second Lady, and so on. I put my hand on Su Qingyue's shoulder. This is my First Lady, Su Qingyue. All household decisions go through her. Her word is my word. Yes, master. They shouted in unison, then bowed deeply to everyone. Greetings to the master. Greetings to the First Lady. Greetings to all the ladies. The sisters-in-law went bright red. None of them had ever been called lady before. Su Qingyue looked like her heart was going to burst out of her chest. Being named the one in charge of this massive estate, she was touched beyond words. I assigned personal maids to each wife, appointed the most experienced-looking man as head steward, and distributed everyone else to the kitchen, stables, gardens, and cleaning duties. Smooth and efficient, if I say so myself. After the servants left, Su Qingyue tugged my sleeve shyly. You really want me to manage all this? It's so big. What if I can't handle it? I pulled her into my arms. You managed our broken shack perfectly. This is just a bigger version. Besides, you're the First Lady. If you don't run this place, who will? She buried her face in my chest and nodded, voice thick with emotion. Then I turned to the other 8, putting on a stern face. One more thing. The word little brother-in-law is officially retired. Anyone who uses it gets punished. She has to warm my bed that night. In your dreams, Chin Rushue snapped, face still red. From now on, you either call me husband or dear husband. Go ahead, try it out. One at a time. Little fifth sister-in-law whispered, husband, without thinking, then turned scarlet and wanted to bury herself alive. I laughed at all their blushing faces, then played my trump card. All right, enough teasing. This estate has over 100 rooms. Go pick your own courtyards. First come, first served, that did it. Every ounce of shyness vanished in an instant. I want the one with the little garden. The lakeside pavilion is mine. Nobody touched the courtyard next to the training ground. 9 beautiful women transformed into a stampede, hiking up their skirts and sprinting in every direction, laughing and shouting and fighting over their favorites. The whole northern garrison mansion came alive with their happy voices. Watching their faces light up with pure, genuine joy, that was worth more than all the gold in my system space. Dinner at the northern garrison mansion was something else. A long purple sandalwood table loaded with incredible food, the new cook giving it everything he had for his debut performance. I sat at the head, Su Qingyue on my left, still shy, Chin Rushue on my right, still blushing from earlier. The rest of my beautiful wives filled out the table while servants stood at attention along the walls. For the first time, we actually looked like a proper household. All the sadness and fear that had been weighing on the sisters-in-law seemed to melt away with every laugh and every bite. Their faces were glowing again, each one radiating her own unique beauty. It hit me. This was what I'd been fighting for. After dinner, everyone scattered to their newly chosen courtyards. I headed to mine, Heavenly Heart Pavilion, the biggest and most luxurious in the whole estate. I closed the heavy doors, threw myself onto a purple sandalwood bed big enough for 8 people, and let out the deepest, most satisfied sigh of my life. From a broken shack to an 80-acre mansion. From starving to having servants. Not bad for a few days' work. I pulled up the beauty gallery in my mind. Chin Rushiue's profile was finally lit up, and the portrait was stunning. Her in a tight black and red combat outfit, holding a silver spear against a blood-red sunset, eyes fierce and defiant. The system really knew how to paint. Her stats showed closeness at 60, status 1 grabs acquaintance. Her special talent was called unyielding. Once activated, I'd gain a toughness constitution that would massively reduce damage from blades, blunt weapons, and physical attacks. Basically an invincibility shield. Then I read the activation condition and my brain short-circuited. Have Chin Rushue wear a sexy dancer's outfit and perform a dance for you. I read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Chin Rushue, the Ice Queen. The woman who just broke a wooden staff over my head for touching her chest. In a skimpy dancer costume with little bells on her waist. Swaying those hips. For me? She would literally chase me to the ends of the earth with a spear if I even suggested it. System, are you trying to get me killed? No response, as usual. The talent was incredible though. Physical damage immunity was basically a cheat code for survival. In a dangerous place like Black Wind City with unknown enemies ahead, that kind of protection would be priceless. I had to get it eventually, but I needed to build up way more closeness first. This was a long-term project. I closed the system and got to business. I dumped every bit of treasure from my storage space onto the floor, everything from the bandit fortress and the tyrant gang vault combined. The room exploded with gold and silver. A literal mountain of wealth piled up before me. Gold bars, silver ingots, chests of pearls, jade, agate, emeralds, antique paintings, porcelain. I dove face first into the pile like a dragon rolling in its hoard. The cold metal against my skin felt incredible. This was security. This was power. After wallowing for a while, I counted everything up. 120 gold bars at 500 silver taels each, 60,000 taels right there. Plus nearly 80,000 in raw silver, plus all the jewelry and antiques. Total net worth, roughly 200,000 silver taels. That was enough to buy 20,000 acres of farmland, half of a mid-sized county. I was officially a tycoon. With this money, I could recruit soldiers, build my own power base, investigate the conspiracy that destroyed my family, and eventually go after the emperor himself. I packed everything back into storage and lay down on my luxurious bed. But sleep wouldn't come. My mind kept replaying the day, Su Qingyue's warmth in my arms, her shy whisper of, husband. Chin Rushue's incredible softness in my palm during the Dragon Claw incident. My internal energy was surging through my veins like a turbocharged engine, demanding action. Back in the old shack, any nighttime activity became a live broadcast for the whole household. But this was the Northern Garrison Mansion, 80 acres of space, courtyards separated by massive distances. I could do jumping jacks in the yard, and nobody next door would hear a thing. Everything aligned perfectly. It would be a crime not to go visit the First Lady for some late-night cultivation practice. I slipped out the door, disappeared into the moonlit night, and crept silently towards Su Qingyue's courtyard, Moon Caress Pavilion. Moon Caress Pavilion was perfectly quiet. I didn't knock, just slipped inside like a ghost. The room smelled incredible. Fresh bath water, flower petals, and that intoxicating scent that only a woman has after bathing. Su Qingyue was sitting at her vanity in the candlelight. Her wet black hair was loosely pinned up, a few strands clinging to her snow-white neck. She wore a moonlight-colored silk nightgown so thin it hid absolutely nothing. In the warm glow of the candles, her skin looked like it was glowing from within. She was frowning over an account book, worrying about how to manage such a massive household. That earnest, slightly troubled expression made my heart melt. I coughed. She yelped, dropped the book, and spun around. Husband, what are you doing here? She tried to pull her nightgown tighter, which only made things worse, or better, depending on your perspective. I walked over, scooped her up in my arms, and gave her backside a playful smack. My first lady is working herself sick over this family. What kind of husband would I be if I didn't come offer some comfort? She squealed and went soft against me, whispering about the maids seeing us. I told her I'd carry my own wife whenever I pleased. I laid her on the bed and leaned over her. So what's bothering my beautiful manager? Are we going bankrupt already? She laughed and hit my chest lightly. She admitted she was scared of not being good enough to run such a big estate, afraid of embarrassing me. I kissed her forehead. You could tear this whole place down, and I'd still back you up. Besides, bookkeeping is small stuff compared to our real family mission. Family mission? I leaned in close to her ear. Continuing the family line, of course. After our deep discussion, I felt amazing. The dragon and phoenix technique had pushed my cultivation forward. My system showed body tempering stage 2, beginner level. But the real shock was Su Qingwei. She was absolutely transformed. Her already stunning beauty had reached a new peak. Her skin was luminous, practically glowing, and there was a natural, bewitching charm in her every expression now. If she was the capital's top beauty before, she was now something beyond human. Then the system chimed. Su Qingyue's beauty score had hit 100 out of 100, peerless beauty, and as a reward, I received a combat technique called Great Dragon's Might. It was a group attack fist technique. One punch releases a roaring dragon's cry, the force splitting into countless dragon shadows that sweep away everything in their path. The ultimate move for fighting armies single-handedly. The complete knowledge of the technique flooded into my brain instantly. I could feel it. If I threw a punch right now, the air itself would shatter into a storm of dragon-shaped force. I looked down at the goddess sleeping in my arms and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. She wasn't just my wife. She was my ultimate power-up, my SSR limited edition card. You are literally my god, I blurted out, kissing her hard. She laughed, confused but happy. What are you talking about? I couldn't just accept a gift this incredible without proper thanks. I owed her. Big time. And I always pay my debts, with interest. Husband. Stop. It's almost dawn, she whispered breathlessly, half begging. I was just getting started. Finally, when everything was peaceful and still, one last system notification popped up in my head. Congratulations. Su Qingwei has successfully conceived a Lin family heir. The host is now a father. Core mission of the family prosperity system has achieved a major breakthrough. Reward, heir gift package. I froze. I looked down slowly at the beautiful woman sleeping peacefully in my arms. Su Qingwei was pregnant. I woke up at dawn feeling incredible. The systems, congratulations, you're a dad, notifications still echoing in my head. It took me half the night to accept it. A few days in this world and I already had a wife, a mansion, and now a baby on the way. The progress bar was moving way too fast. Su Qingwei was sleeping peacefully in my arms, a sweet smile on her lips. Her beauty had reached its absolute peak. The system confirmed it. Beauty score 100 out of 100, peerless beauty. The dragon and phoenix technique had transformed her. Her skin practically glowed, and there was this natural, intoxicating charm in everything she did now. Combined with the soft radiance of approaching motherhood, she was beyond words. My energy was already coming back. I was seriously considering a surprise attack when she woke up, burrowed shyly into my chest, and asked what I was staring at. My wife, the most beautiful woman in the world. She blushed and started tracing circles on my chest with her finger, which was not helping me calm down. But she quickly switched to business mode. Her homemaker talent in full effect. She'd already surveyed the entire estate and had a complete list of everything that needed doing. Roofs leaking in several courtyards, the kitchen completely empty, groceries to buy, clothes to order for everyone including the servants, a payroll system to establish, gardens to restore, empty stables to maintain. She laid it all out, organized and thorough. I was genuinely impressed. This woman was born to run a household. Every detail accounted for, nothing overlooked. When she finished, I summoned a heavy chest from my storage space. It crashed onto the floor, and the lid fell open, revealing rows of neatly stacked gold bars blazing in the morning sunlight. Her jaw dropped. She stared at the gold like she'd forgotten how to blink. Use this for now, I said casually. All household spending is your responsibility. When you need more, just ask. She had 1,000 questions. Where did it come from? How did I make it appear? but I could see her swallow them all. She'd learned not to ask, because my explanations always involved our bedroom activities, and that was too embarrassing to hear. She just nodded quietly, accepting both the gold and the trust behind it. Then I brought up something that had been weighing on me. Qingyue, our father and brothers are still buried in unmarked graves on that hillside outside the city. They died wrongfully, and they deserve better. Now that we have this estate, I want to give them a proper burial. Find a good piece of land, build a Lin family ancestral hall, set up memorial tablets, and keep incense burning for them. Her eyes went red immediately. She nodded firmly and took charge of it on the spot. She'd go to the best coffin maker in the city, hire the best feng shui master, order the finest golden Namu wood caskets. She'd make sure it was done right. Then she raised another concern. This estate is 80 acres with high walls, but our security is basically nothing. A few door guards won't stop anyone serious. We need a proper security force. She suggested asking Qin Ruxue to handle it. Second sister-in-law came from a military family. Her father had been a general, and she knew more about recruiting, training, and organizing fighters than anyone else here. Smart thinking. You really are the perfect manager, I said, pinching her cheek. I'll go talk to her right now. I found Qin Ruxue at the training ground. She'd been up since before dawn, already an hour into sword practice. She was wearing a tight black training outfit that showed off her athletic figure, slim waist, long legs, not an ounce of extra weight anywhere. She was using the pity flower sword, and watching her move was mesmerizing. Her swordsmanship had the grace of a dancer and the ferocity of a battlefield general. Beautiful and deadly. But when she caught sight of me strolling over, her movements stuttered just slightly. The memory of yesterday's sparring match, my hands, my accidents, that final grab, must have flooded back all at once. Her face turned red, and I could see the briefest flash of panic in her eyes before she forced it down. Qin Ruxue pretended she didn't see me coming and kept practicing her sword forms, but her technique was noticeably sloppier than before. The proud ice queen was flustered, and it was adorable. I walked right up to her with my best innocent smile. Good morning, wifey. Up early practicing. She nearly threw out her back mid-swing. Who's your wife? Don't talk nonsense. I held out my open palm. Oh, you're not my wife? Then I'll need the pity flower sword back. I only lend that blade to my wife. Since you're not her. The panic on her face was priceless. She'd been using that sword nonstop for 2 days and was completely in love with it. It was sharper than anything she'd ever owned, and it had somehow been getting even sharper lately, because my beauty gallery closeness totals were going up, which powered the sword, but she didn't know that. Asking her to give it back was worse than asking for a kidney, but asking her to call herself my wife. For someone with her fierce pride, that was equally impossible. She stood there frozen, jaw clenched, knuckles white on the hilt, torn between two unbearable options. Her face went through about 15 shades of red. Finally, her pride won. She thrust the sword toward me, handle first, chin held high, voice cracking with barely concealed heartbreak. Fine. Take it back. She turned her head away so I wouldn't see how devastated she was. But her trembling eyelashes gave her away completely. I didn't take the sword. Instead, I stepped forward until I was right against her. She tried to back up, but hit a wooden training post. Nowhere to run. My scent wrapped around her, and I could see her pulse hammering in her neck. I reached out with 2 fingers and gently pushed the sword back into her hands, my fingertips brushing against her warm skin. She flinched like she'd been shocked. I caught her hand, sword and all, and held it softly. I was just teasing you. I let go, and the playfulness in my voice gave way to something genuine. Nobody in this entire estate deserves this sword more than you. Keep it, my second lady. Those last 2 words hung in the air between us. She stared at the sword in her hands, then up at my face, completely speechless. I could practically see the gears in her head grinding to a halt. This shameless pervert, who groped her yesterday, just said something that made her heart skip a beat. She didn't know what to do with that. Before she could sort out her feelings, I switched to business. Su Qingyue and I talked this morning. This estate is massive but practically defenseless. Just a few house servants guarding 80 acres. We need a real security force, trained fighters, and good horses. I want you to take charge of it. The transformation was instant. All the blushing and confusion vanished. Her eyes lit up like someone had flipped a switch. The shy girl disappeared, and the general's daughter emerged. Sharp, focused, commanding. You're absolutely right. This can't wait. She launched into a detailed plan without missing a beat. The horse market outside the West Gate sells retired northern border war horses, not military grade, but far better than regular horses. That's where we should start. For manpower, there's a warrior market on the south side where retired soldiers, wandering fighters, and down-on-their-luck martial artists gather. With enough silver, we can recruit some seriously skilled people. Watching her talk strategy was like watching a completely different person. This was the real Qin Rushua, not just a beautiful woman with a hot temper, but someone who genuinely knew military affairs. Perfect. Let's go right now. Horses first, then fighters. We headed to the horse market outside the West Gate. The place was packed and noisy, reeking of hay and livestock. Qin Rushua walked beside me in her tight black outfit, every step radiating confidence and power. She was still a little pink from our morning encounter and was deliberately keeping half a foot of distance between us, refusing to look my way. I didn't mind. I just happily strolled along beside her, occasionally sneaking glances at her waist and the curves below it. This spicy little pepper was growing on me more every day. The moment we stepped into the market, a horse dealer with a thin mustache and shifty little eyes scurried over. "Welcome, sir. Welcome, miss. You two look like exceptional people. Looking for horses? Come see old Ma's stable. Guaranteed satisfaction." The horse dealer dragged us to his stall and pointed at a reddish-brown horse, going on and on about it being descended from legendary war horses, able to run 800 miles a day. I kept quiet. I don't know anything about horses, but Qin Rushua does. She walked up, pried open the horse's mouth without hesitation, and tore the dealer apart. Teeth are worn flat. This horse is at least 10 years old. You call this a young stallion? Then she ran her hand down its back and legs. Rear tendons are loose, old hoof injury. This thing couldn't run 20 miles without collapsing. She fixed the dealer with those icy eyes of hers. And you're calling this a prize horse? The dealer's smile melted right off his face. He knew he'd run into an expert. Watching her work was genuinely impressive. The professional confidence, the sharp eye, the commanding presence. She was magnificent. Way more attractive than any pampered noble lady I could imagine. She ignored the dealer and walked through the deeper rows of the stable, examining horses one by one, checking bones and muscles with practiced hands. Then she spotted a jet-black stallion in the corner. Powerful build, sleek muscles, proud temperament. The horse actually lowered its head to let her pet it. "Beautiful horse," she said, and turned to look at me. Those cold eyes of hers had the excitement of a kid finding the perfect toy, silently asking permission. I grinned and waved at the dealer. "That one, plus those 9 she was eyeing. All of them. Name your price." The dealer knew better than to play games now. He gave a fair number. I paid in silver and told him to deliver them to the Northern Garrison Mansion. Qin Rushua was glowing. She swung onto her new black stallion in one smooth leap. Black outfit, black horse, looking every bit like a war goddess riding into battle. She turned to call me over and found me standing next to my brown horse, holding the reins, making absolutely no move to get on. "Why aren't you mounting up?" I scratched my nose. Slightly embarrassing, but I owned it. "I don't know how to ride." Silence. She stared at me like I'd grown a third arm. The man who kicked a thug into a permanent lifestyle change. The man who single-handedly destroyed an entire bandit fortress. Couldn't ride a horse. Then it clicked for her. Right. I'd been a bedridden invalid my entire life before this. Of course I'd never learned. She sighed, patted the space behind her on the saddle, and said with obvious reluctance, "Get on." Music to my ears. I tossed my reins to a stable hand and hopped up behind her in one smooth motion. The second I was seated, my arms wrapped naturally around her tiny waist. My entire chest pressed flush against her back. Through 2 thin layers of clothing, I could feel her warmth, her heartbeat speeding up, the way her muscles tensed. "Your hands," she hissed. "I need to hold on. What if I fall off? This is my first time on a horse. I'm scared my foot." She knew that was garbage, but she couldn't argue with the logic. She could only grit her teeth and endure my arms locked around her waist, my palms burning against her stomach. As the horse started trotting, each bounce pressed my chest harder against her back. I rested my chin on her shoulder and leaned close to her ear, asking innocent questions in my most sincere voice. "So, second lady, what's the technique for riding?" How should I grip with my legs? How do I keep my balance? My warm breath kept tickling her ear. Her neck, her shoulders, her whole back were turning red. She was practically vibrating with a mix of fury and something else. Sit still. Stop moving, she squeezed out through clenched teeth. Okay, I said obediently and tightened my arms just a little more. After a while of trotting, she suddenly frowned and shifted uncomfortably. What's that thing on your belt? Move your dagger. It's poking me. I blinked innocently. I don't have a dagger, she paused. Processed. Then boom. Realization hit her like a thunderbolt. Her face went from pink to crimson to nearly purple. At that exact moment, the horse reared up with a loud whinny. Chin Rushua lurched forward, then the saddle bounced her straight back, hard, right onto the thing that was definitely not a dagger. Her entire body went rigid. Her brain stopped working. I'm pretty sure mine did too. We arrived at the Westgate Warrior Market. Chin Rushua practically flew off the horse the second we stopped, refusing to look at me. Her face was burning red, and she stomped off into the crowd without a word. I checked the system. Her closeness had jumped another 10 points to 70. Status: riding together. That horse ride had been very productive. I bought 2 meat-stuffed flatbreads from a nearby stall and followed her in. By the time I found her, she'd completely transformed back into the general's daughter. Ice cold, professional, standing in front of a group of fighters like she was born to command. I handed her a flatbread. She stiffened, clearly remembering the horse incident, and tried to refuse, but her stomach growled loudly. She snatched it from my hand and bit into it like she was biting into my flesh. Watching her recruit was a masterclass. Some muscular guy was pounding his chest bragging about his strength. She glanced at him once and walked away. Weak foundation, unstable breathing. A thug with a machete blocked her path and leered at her. She had the pity flower sword at his throat before he finished his sentence. The entire market went dead quiet after that. Then she found what she was really looking for. A group of quiet men standing in the shadows. Real soldiers. She walked up to one and asked which unit he'd served in. The man flinched and rattled off an old military designation. She asked who'd commanded the Blackwater River battle. His eyes filled with pain. General Tiger's Might, he said, her own father's title. Her eyes went red for just a moment before she pulled herself together. She picked out 50 battle-hardened veterans. They looked rough, worn clothes, tired faces, but their eyes had that look. The look of men who'd killed and survived. These were real fighters. When we were ready to head back, I patted the horse and grinned. Want to ride together again? She jumped back 3 steps like the saddle was made of hot coals. I am. Walking. She walked the entire way home. By the time we reached the mansion gates, it was completely dark. Then everything changed. A small figure came stumbling toward us from the darkness, crying and screaming. It was Chuntao, Su Qingyue's personal maid. Her hair was a mess, her clothes covered in dirt, her face streaked with tears. She collapsed at my feet. Master, it's terrible. The First Lady. She's been kidnapped. Every trace of laughter drained from my body like someone had pulled a plug. I grabbed her and pulled her up. Slow down. Tell me exactly what happened. Between sobs, she explained. Su Qingyue had gone out today to handle household business, depositing gold at the bank, buying supplies, meeting a feng shui master about building the ancestral hall for my father and brothers. Everything went smoothly. But on the way back, just outside the city gates, masked men ambushed them from the trees. They knocked out the guards and took Su Qingyue. They left a note. I snatched the crumpled paper from her trembling hands. Crooked handwriting. Want to save her? Come to Chaos Rock Slope on Blackwind Mountain. Alone. Bring anyone else, and you'll be collecting her corpse. Something inside me snapped. A wave of killing intent exploded out of me, so intense that all 50 newly recruited veterans, hardened men who'd crawled out of real battlefields, went pale and struggled to breathe. There, dead, 2 words, cold as the grave. Su Qingyue, the first person who showed me warmth in this world. The woman who managed my home, who called me husband, with that shy smile, who was carrying my child. Someone had taken her. Chin Rushua was already at my side, sword drawn, face white with fury. I'm coming with you. I grabbed her wrist. No, you stay. She's been taken and you want me to stay? I turned to face her. Whatever she saw in my eyes made her go still. They want me alone. This could be a trap. Lure me out, then hit the mansion while it's undefended. 7 of our sisters are still inside. Dozens of servants who can't fight. If we both leave, and this is a diversion, everyone here dies. The anger drained from her face as the logic sank in. I turned to the 50 soldiers. My voice came out like frozen steel. From this moment, you follow the second lady's orders. Lock the gates. Nobody in or out. If anyone attacks, kill them all. Yes, Sir. 50 voices roared back, their warrior blood ignited. I looked at Chin Rushua one last time. The murderous rage in my eyes softened just slightly, replaced by the weight of everything I was trusting her with. The family is in your hands. Then I vanished into the night. I disappeared into the night. Behind me, I knew Chin Rushua would hold the mansion together. She was a general's daughter, and the moment I left, she'd become the iron pillar holding up everything. And she did. I could hear her barking orders before I was even out of earshot. Gates sealed, archers on the corner towers, patrols organized, all women gathered in the main hall. Within minutes, she'd turned 80 acres of luxury estate into a fortress. Those 50 veterans we just recruited, they were already following her like she'd commanded them for years. But I couldn't think about that now. I ran through the dark streets of Black Wind City like a ghost, nothing but cold fury driving me forward. The laughter, the teasing, the playfulness, all gone. There was only ice in my veins. I forced myself to think clearly despite the rage screaming inside my skull. Who did this? Leftover bandits from Blackwind Fortress? No, I'd wiped them out completely. Wang Daba's thugs? They didn't have the brains or the courage. Some other gang in the city? Possible. Or was it the people who poisoned my brothers and destroyed the Lin family in the first place? That last thought made my blood boil, so hot I could barely see straight. Every time I pictured Su Qingyue, her gentle smile, her shy voice calling me husband, the baby growing inside her, the killing intent pouring off me grew thicker. She was my first warmth in this world. She was carrying the first hope of the Lin family's future. And someone had taken her. I reached Black Wind Mountain faster than I thought possible. Chaos rock slope, a mess of jagged boulders at the base of the mountain, bathed in pale moonlight. 2 bandits were lounging behind a rock, drinking cheap wine and talking. One had a scar on his face, the other was a skinny rat-faced guy. I heard every word as I approached silently. Scarface was complaining that their boss was being too cautious. Just one pretty boy, why bother kidnapping his woman? Should have just stormed his mansion and killed him, Ratface laughed. Boss says the kid is dangerous. Took down the whole tyrant gang by himself. So we use his woman as bait, lure him up the mountain, and 100 brothers chop him to pieces. Scarface spat on the ground. When he shows up, let's shake him down first. Heard he cleaned out the tyrant gang's vault. 100 taels for guide fees. And if he doesn't pay, we start cutting his wife's fingers off. I stepped out of the shadows. Moonlight hit my face. Black clothes, straight posture, not a trace of warmth in my expression. Scarface saw me first. He grinned, grabbed his blade, and swaggered toward me. You're Lynn M.O? Here to save your pretty little wife? Sure thing. First hand over 100 taels for me and my buddy here. Make us happy, and maybe we'll let you see her one last time before. He was still talking when I moved. 3 meters of distance vanished in a blink. My hand closed around his throat before his eyes could even widen. Crack. His neck snapped like a dry twig. His head flopped sideways at an angle that necks don't bend. The smug grin froze permanently on his dead face. I tossed the body aside like trash. I didn't look at it. Didn't care. My eyes locked onto the rat-faced one. His wine flask hit the ground. He'd just watched his partner, a hardened killer, get his neck snapped like a chicken's in less than a second. He tried to scream. Nothing came out. His legs collapsed and he dropped to his knees. Lead the way, 2 words. Colder than anything I'd ever said in 2 lifetimes. He just knelt there shaking, mumbling, "Don't kill me," over and over, too terrified to function. I stepped forward and slapped him across the face. The force spun him halfway around, his cheek instantly swelling, teeth and blood spraying from his mouth. The pain snapped him back to reality. He looked into my eyes, red-tinged, completely empty of mercy, and finally understood what he was dealing with. Not a man. A demon crawled up from hell to collect souls. I'll lead you. Right this way, sir." He scrambled to his feet and bolted up the hidden mountain trail, running for his life, terrified that if he slowed down for even a heartbeat, his head would end. up facing the same direction as his partners. The rat-faced bandit led me deep into Black Wind Mountain, to a fortress called Black Cloud Stronghold, the biggest bandit operation on the entire mountain. When we reached the entrance, the gates were wide open, fire torches lighting everything up bright as day. Over 100 armed bandits lined both sides, forming a corridor of blades. They wanted to intimidate me. I walked in alone, one step at a time, no expression on my face. Every bandit who met my eyes flinched and gripped their weapons tighter. On a raised platform at the far end sat the person behind all this, a massive woman named Wang Sanjiao. She was enormous, filling an entire tiger-skin chair, and her eyes were crueler than any man's in the room. She was the leader of Black Cloud Stronghold, and sitting beside her, in smaller chairs, were two familiar faces, Wang Daba and Wang Erba, the brothers I destroyed. Wang Daba had used his last 5 taels of silver to send a message up the mountain to his sister. She'd brought them both here, tried to heal Wang Daba, failed, and now both brothers were permanently ruined. She wanted revenge. Her plan was simple but effective. She knew from her brothers that I was dangerously strong, so she'd kidnapped Su Qingwei to lure me here alone. 1 man against 100. Even I couldn't win those odds, especially with my wife as a hostage. In the center of the hall was a large iron cage. Inside it, Su Qingwei lay unconscious, her clothes wrinkled, her hair loose. Even passed out and surrounded by filth, she was heartbreakingly beautiful. The bandits were staring at her like wolves, making disgusting comments about what they'd do to her after they killed me. Wang Sanjiao had announced her plan to the cheering crowd. They'd tie me up, force my eyes open, and make me watch while every single one of her men took turns with my wife. She wanted me to die from shame and despair. Wang Erba, who'd seen what I could do firsthand, tugged his sister's sleeve with trembling hands and begged her to just let Su Qingwei go. He's not human, he's a devil. Wang Daba slapped him across the face. With 100 men and our sister leading, one boy can't do anything. They were wrong. I walked through the gauntlet of armed bandits in silence. My eyes found only one thing, the iron cage and the woman inside it. The rat-faced guide started to open his mouth, probably wanting to brag about delivering me. My fist connected with his skull before he got a word out. His head burst like a watermelon hit by a sledgehammer. Bone fragments, blood, and brain matter sprayed across the ground. His headless body crumpled and twitched. Every voice in that fortress died at once. 100 men who'd been howling for blood went completely silent. The cold that swept through them wasn't from the mountain wind. Wang Sanjiao's smug smile froze on her face. She hadn't planned for this. She'd expected a desperate man ready to beg, not a demon who'd kill without blinking. She recovered fast, though. She swung her massive cleaver against the iron cage with a clang and pressed the blade towards Su Qingwei's unconscious body. Stop right there. One more step and I'll run her through. I stopped. She grinned, thinking she'd regained control. She pointed at her 2 crippled brothers and laid out her demands. Want to save your precious wife? Then get on your knees. Crawl over here. Count out to my brothers. Lick the bottoms of their shoes clean with your tongue. Maybe, if I'm in a good mood, I'll let your little wifey die quickly instead of slowly. Her real plan was transparent. The moment I knelt, she'd have her men swarm me, tie me up, then make me watch while 100 bandits violated Su Qingwei one by one, until I died of despair. She thought she had me cornered. She thought wrong. I stopped and assessed the situation. About 130 armed bandits between me and that iron cage. Wang Sanjiao stood next to it, her cleaver ready to strike Su Qingwei the instant I moved. Over 10 meters of distance. Even at my speed, she could kill my wife before I reached her. A direct attack would get Su Qingwei killed. I needed something else. My mind raced through every weapon in my arsenal, every trick, every advantage. Then I remembered, a golden light flickering in the corner of my consciousness. The gift package from when the system announced Su Qingwei's pregnancy. I'd completely forgotten about it in all the chaos. I opened it instantly. Universe Soul-Fixing Talisman, a one-time item. When activated, everything within a 100-meter radius freezes in absolute time stop for 3 heartbeats. Everything except me. 3 heartbeats. That was all I needed. Wang Sanjiao saw something change in my expression. Instead of fear or desperation, I was smiling. A cold, terrifying smile. She mistook it for surrender. Ready to be a dog? Too late. I changed my mind. Even if you crawl over here and lick their shoes, I'm going to. She never finished that sentence. A golden talisman covered in glowing symbols appeared in my hand. I crushed it. Boom. An invisible wave rippled outward from my body. The entire world stopped. Everything froze. Wang Sanjiao's raised cleaver hung motionless in the air. The spit flying from a screaming bandit's mouth floated in place, catching firelight. Flames stopped flickering. Dust particles hung suspended. Wind died mid-howl. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. Except me. First heartbeat. I crossed the distance to Wang Sanjiao in a flash. Second heartbeat. I ripped the cleaver from her frozen hands. Third heartbeat. I swung with everything I had across her thick neck. Time resumed. A fountain of blood erupted from where her head used to be, shooting several meters into the air. Her enormous head flew off with an expression of total disbelief still plastered on it, bounced twice, and rolled across the ground. Her headless mountain of a body crashed down, flooding the platform with dark red. Every bandit in the fortress froze, not from magic this time, but from pure shock. 1 second their invincible leader was in control. The next, she was headless. Nobody could process what had just happened. Wang Daba screamed first, a high, unnatural shriek. He saw his sister's head on the ground and went completely insane, pointing at me, howling. Kill him. Whoever kills him gets everything. Gold, women, all of it. Greed beat fear. Over 100 bandits roared and charged from every direction, a black tide of blades and fury surging toward the platform. I looked at Wang Daba and threw a single punch. The concentrated force blew his head apart like a rotten melon. Blood and brains splattered all over Wang Erba, who sat frozen in his chair, too terrified to even scream. Then the horde was on me. Su Qingwei was right behind me in that cage. I couldn't retreat a single step. And a long fight meant more risk, more variables, more chances for something to go wrong. I needed to end this. Right now, I channeled every drop of energy through the dragon and phoenix technique into the skill I'd never used before. The gift Su Qingyue's perfect beauty score had given me. Great dragon's might. I warred. Behind me, a massive blood-red dragon shadow materialized from thin air, letting out a bone-chilling shriek. Then I struck. Rings of visible crimson shockwaves exploded outward from my body in every direction. The bandits at the front didn't even have time to scream. Their bodies simply burst into red mist on contact. The ones behind them were hit next, their bones shattering, their organs liquefying, bodies detonating like they'd been struck by siege weapons. I hit them again, and again, 3 palm strikes in rapid succession. Great dragon's might. The screaming, the crunching, the wet explosions of flesh, it all blended into one horrible symphony that shook the entire mountain. The main hall's support beams snapped from the shockwaves alone, the whole building collapsing and crushing dozens more underneath. When the dust settled, the fortress had become hell on earth. Body parts everywhere, rivers of blood, the smell of iron so thick it coated my tongue. Fewer than 10 bandits were still standing, and every one of them had completely broken. They screamed about ghosts and demons, dropped their weapons, and fled in every direction. I chased them down, one by one. A punch that shattered a skull, a palm strike through a chest. I was death itself, walking through the destruction I'd created, harvesting the last few lives. No survivors. Not one. When the final bandit fell at the gate with his head caved in, the entire Black Cloud stronghold went silent. I looked up at the platform, at the iron cage, at the woman inside. The killing fury drained from my eyes, replaced by something completely different. Tenderness. An overwhelming relief. The fortress was a slaughterhouse. Blood everywhere, body parts scattered across the ground, the stench of death thick enough to choke on. The only person still alive was Wang Erba, slumped by the tiger skin chair, soaked in his own filth, shaking like a leaf. I walked toward him through pools of blood. Each step echoed in the silence. I crouched down in front of him. My face was calm, no anger, no cruelty, just emptiness. That scared him more than any snarl ever could. Does your family have any other relatives? Anywhere? Anyone I should know about? He understood instantly what I was asking. I was making sure there'd be no one left to come for revenge. No, nobody. Please. I'm nothing. Let me go. I got my answer. I placed my hand gently on the back of his neck. He felt the warmth of my palm and the unstoppable strength behind it. One soft crack. His head dropped. The light left his eyes. All three Wong siblings gone. I stood up without looking at the body and walked to the iron cage. All the rage, all the bloodlust that had been burning inside me drained away the moment I looked at her. There was only heartbreak left. Su Qingyue was curled up inside the cage, her clothes wrinkled and dirty, her beautiful hair a mess, tear tracks on her pale face. Even like this, she was stunning. Her body trembled in her sleep, trapped in some nightmare. I broke the heavy steel lock with one punch, gently opened the cage door, and lifted her out. She was so light in my arms. She woke up screaming, "Don't touch me. Get away." She thrashed and kicked, pushing at me with everything she had. She thought I was one of the bandits. The terror in her eyes shattered my heart. "Qingyue, it's me." I held her tight so she wouldn't hurt herself, pressed my cheek against her forehead, and whispered in her ear, "It's your husband. I'm here. It's over. You're safe." My voice, my scent, something familiar finally broke through the wall of fear. Her eyes focused. She saw my face, and she completely fell apart. She threw her arms around my neck and buried her face in my chest, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. All the terror of being kidnapped, all the helplessness, all the relief of being rescued. It poured out in wave after wave of tears. Lynn M.O. I was so scared. So scared. "It's okay. I'm here. It's over now." I held her and patted her back, saying the same words over and over until she finally cried herself to sleep in my arms, completely exhausted. I took off my outer robe, soaked in blood that wasn't mine, and wrapped her up in it, leaving only her tear-stained face visible. Then I carried her down from that platform of corpses, through the destroyed fortress, and out into the night. I didn't look back once. That monster who'd killed 130 men with his bare hands. That wasn't who I wanted to be right now. I was just a man carrying his wife home. Back at the mansion, the gates were blazing with light. Qin Rushua stood out front like a statue carved from ice, hand on her sword, backed by rows of armed soldiers. She'd held the fortress perfectly. When she saw me approaching, her eyes went to Su Qingyue in my arms, then to the blood covering every inch of me. Her face went white. "How is she?" "Scared. Get a doctor. Now." The steward scrambled to send someone. I carried Su Qingyue straight to her room. The sisters-in-law followed, faces tight with worry. I could feel Qin Rushua's eyes on my back the whole way. Concerned about Big Sister, yes, but I caught something else in her gaze too. Worry for me. The best doctor in the city arrived looking terrified. I stood over him while he examined Su Qingyue, and my bloodshot stare made him sweat through his collar. After checking her pulse, he exhaled with relief. "She's only frightened. No real harm done. Some calming medicine and a few days rest will fix her right up." Everyone let out a collective breath. My locked-up muscles finally loosened a fraction. Then the doctor smiled and bowed again. "And congratulations, sir. The lady is with child. It's very early still, and the scare has unsettled things a bit, so I'll prescribe something to stabilize the pregnancy. With proper care, she'll deliver a healthy baby." The room went completely silent. Every pair of eyes dropped to Su Qingyue's flat belly. She was carrying the first Lin family heir. Qin Rushua's expression was the most complicated I'd ever seen. Shock, a flash of envy she probably didn't even realize she felt, but mostly genuine happiness. The Lin family bloodline would continue. Our father and brothers could rest in peace. I shoved a silver ingot into the doctor's hand. "Use the best medicine money can buy." After everyone left, I sat alone by her bed. I dipped a warm cloth in water and carefully wiped every tear track and smudge from her sleeping face, gentle as if she were made of glass. In her sleep, she reached out blindly, grasping at the air, and whispered my name. "Husband, don't leave. I'm scared." Something deep inside my chest ached. I caught her small, soft hand in mine and held it tight. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here. I'll watch over you." Su Qingyue woke up in the afternoon. Sunlight was filtering through the curtains. The room smelled like calming herbs, and everything felt peaceful. She turned her head and found me sitting right there beside her, dozing off while still stubbornly holding her hand. I hadn't let go all night. The moment she moved, I snapped awake. Old habits from last night. My eyes went sharp for a split second before softening when I saw it was just her, awake and okay. How are you feeling? She told me to go rest. I told her I was made of iron. Then I picked up a bowl of dark, bitter medicine the doctor had left. Time to drink up, my lady. Doctor says it's good for you and the baby. She wrinkled her nose and tried to back away. It's so bitter. I don't want to. Then she froze. Wait, what did you just say? Good for me, and the what? She stared at me, trembling, not sure if she'd heard right or if I was playing another trick. I put the bowl down carefully, sat on the edge of the bed, and placed my hand gently on her belly. Our child, Qingyue. You're carrying a Lin family baby. Her brain shut down completely. She looked at my hand on her stomach, then back at my face, then at her stomach again. Then everything hit her at once. The joy of becoming a mother, the miracle of the Lin bloodline continuing, the weight of fulfilling father's dying wish. Tears poured down her face. She grabbed that horrible bitter medicine she'd been refusing and drank every last drop without hesitation. Then she threw herself into my arms and cried into my chest. I'm just so happy, she sobbed. Then let's talk about something fun, I said, grinning. We need to pick a name. She snuggled closer, smiling through her tears. What do you think? I slapped my thigh dramatically. If it's a boy, Lin Batian, dominator of the heavens. How's that for powerful? Her sweet expression froze solid. Lin Batian? That sounds like a bandit chief. Okay, how about Lin Outyan? Pride of the heavens. You can practically hear the destiny. Her eyes started twitching. Fine, final offer. Lin Ritian. I won't translate what that name literally implies. Let's just say it was extremely inappropriate. Su Qingyue's entire face turned crimson from neck to ear tips. She shoved me away, grabbed a pillow, and started beating me with it. Absolutely not. That's the most shameless name I've ever heard. What is wrong with you? I caught the pillow easily, pretending to be deeply hurt by her lack of vision. She turned away, cheeks puffed up. I'm not talking to you anymore. I wrapped my arms around her from behind and softened my voice. Okay, I was just kidding. She relaxed a little. Then I opened my big mouth again. But seriously, Qingyue, this is just the beginning. One baby isn't enough. I need you to give me a whole soccer team. Soccer team? She blinked in confusion. She'd obviously never heard the term. It's a sport. 2 teams on a big grass field. Each team has 11 players, and they kick a ball around trying to score goals. I was getting excited explaining it. But Su Qingyue's brain had snagged on one specific number. I watched her slowly count on her delicate fingers. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock, to horror, to fury. 11, her hand found the soft flesh at my waist and twisted with devastating force. Lynn M.O. Do you think I'm a PIG? 11 children? I'm not doing it. I refuse. Late that night, I sat alone in the study. 3 heavy chests of treasure I'd looted from the destroyed Black Cloud stronghold sat in the corner, enough to fund the mansion for years. But money wasn't what was on my mind. The joy of Su Qingyue's pregnancy had faded into something cold and heavy. Today's kidnapping had exposed a terrifying truth. I couldn't protect everyone by myself. I'd gotten lucky this time. What about next time? What if enemies attacked the mansion while I was away? What if they used another diversion? I had 1 pair of hands and 9 women to protect, plus dozens of servants across 80 acres. One man can't plug every hole in the wall. I needed a real military force. Loyal, trained, and strong enough to hold this place without me. My thoughts kept circling back to one person. Qin Rushua, the woman who could spot a veteran soldier from across a crowded market. The general's daughter who'd been born to command, but never given the chance. I needed to talk to her about the defense plan. Right now, I jumped up and headed straight for her quarters. What I forgot was that it was the middle of the night. What I also forgot was to knock. I kicked her door open and walked in, and found her soaking in a large bath, surrounded by herbal steam, completely naked. Get out, you animal. She screamed and sank into the water until only her bright red face and shoulders were visible, eyes blazing with murderous fury. I ignored the screaming entirely. I walked right up to the tub and looked down at her with the most serious expression I could manage. I have something extremely important to discuss with you. She was so thrown by my sudden intensity that her rage actually stuttered. She bit her lip and glared at me suspiciously. What? I told her the truth. Su Qingyue's kidnapping proved that I alone couldn't keep everyone safe. I asked about the 100 soldiers she'd recruited, the original 50 plus 50 more she'd added on her own initiative that afternoon. Smart woman. She snapped into professional mode instantly, even while sitting in a bathtub. The new recruits were solid fighters, but still settling in, not yet fully committed. I laid out my plan. Double everyone's pay starting tomorrow. Meat at every meal. In this world, soldiers who eat well and get paid well fight like demons. She hesitated. Is that really necessary? Absolutely. We just took over this mansion. Our foundation is shaky. Enemies are watching. The defense can't have any weak spots. Then I looked her in the eye. I'm putting you in complete charge of all security for the Northern Garrison Mansion. Recruiting, training, patrols, defense planning. All of it is yours. Your decisions, your authority. I only have one requirement. Turn this place into an impenetrable fortress. She went completely still. Full authority. Her own command. Everything she dreamed of since childhood. Reading military texts, training with weapons, wanting to be like her father, but was never allowed because she was a woman. No one had ever trusted her with real responsibility like this. Something shifted in her eyes. For the first time, she wasn't looking at me like I was a shameless pervert. She was looking at me like someone worth following. You think I can't handle it? I prodded. Who said that? She sat up straight, causing some interesting water displacement. A little mansion defense. Child's play. Give me 2 weeks, and this place will be untouchable. Perfect. Spend whatever you need. Keep recruiting. Quality matters more than quantity. Understood. For a few beautiful minutes, we had a real, productive conversation. Strategy, logistics, command structure. She was so deep into planning mode that she completely forgot she was naked in a bathtub talking to a man. Then she noticed something. My hands were untying my belt. Her brain crashed and rebooted. What? What are you doing? Every drop of respect and admiration she'd been building up evaporated in an instant. The trustworthy leader image shattered back into shameless pervert. I kept a perfectly straight face while pulling off my outer robe. Giving you authority isn't enough. You need to get stronger too. What if a skilled assassin breaks in and takes you down in one move? That'd be embarrassing for the head of security. So for the sake of your rapid improvement, I have no choice but to sacrifice myself and personally help you. Train. I jumped into the bathtub. Splash. Water erupted like a tidal wave, flooding half the bathroom floor. Oh, Lynn M.O, you shameless bastard. Get out. Get out. Her scream could have been heard 3 mountains over. Afterward, Chin Rushua managed to pull herself together enough to grab some clothes. Her hair was a mess. Her face was redder than I'd ever seen it, and she was holding the pity flower sword with its tip pressed against my throat. I raised both hands in surrender. Easy now, wifey. Killing your husband is a serious crime. Shut up. You shameless animal. Her eyes were practically shooting flames. She was shaking with fury, but buried somewhere in all that rage, I could tell there was something else she didn't want to admit. A vulnerability. A trembling she couldn't explain away with anger alone. I leaned forward into the blade instead of backing off. I know you're upset, but I wasn't just messing around. Didn't you feel it? Something changed inside your body. The only change is that I can't walk straight. She was so furious, she swung the sword at a nearby table just to vent. And that's when everything changed. A pulse of reddish energy shot from the blade, crossed the open air, and split the solid redwood table clean in half. Tea sets exploded, wood chunks scattered everywhere. Dead silence. Chin Rushua stared at the destroyed table, then at her sword, then at the table again. Her brain completely froze. Mine did too. Sword energy projection? That's not body tempering level. That's something out of a cultivation fantasy. When I'd used the dragon and phoenix technique with Su Qingwe, she just got prettier and healthier. But Chin Rushua's martial artist body had reacted completely differently. The technique had supercharged her combat abilities. I checked her system panel. Closeness had jumped from 70 to 82. But the real discovery was what the dual cultivation had done to her physical capabilities. I seized the moment. Sit down. Close your eyes. Feel what's happening inside your body. She wanted to kill me, but that table-splitting sword strike had shaken her to her core. After glaring at me for a long moment, she sat cross-legged on the bed and turned her focus inward. Her eyebrows furrowed. There's a thin red thread of energy flowing through my meridians. It's warm. And my old injuries, the ones no doctor could fix, they feel like they're being healed, exactly what I'd hoped. My energy had entered her body through the technique and was strengthening her from the inside. repairing years of training damage. She opened her eyes, staring at me with genuine shock. That sword energy I released. Was it really because you? Absolutely. I stood up straight, radiating pure righteousness. And this is just the beginning. If we keep training together, you won't just shoot sword energy. You'll be splitting boulders with your bare hands, punching tigers, kicking sea dragons. I smoothly connected it back to the mansion defense. Think about it. You firing sword energy that travels dozens of meters? Who would dare attack our home? You'd be the ultimate guardian of the northern garrison mansion. I could see it in her eyes. Qin Rushue was a martial arts fanatic to her bones, and I'd just dangled the greatest prize imaginable in front of her. She was already picturing herself cutting down enemies with waves of sword energy, turning the mansion into an impregnable fortress. She'd completely forgotten to be angry at me. Then I sighed dramatically. There's just one problem with my technique. It requires emotional harmony between both people. And honestly, our connection is still pretty weak. That's why the energy went out of control and destroyed the table. If that hit a person, it could be catastrophic. Her eyes widened with concern. Then how do we? Simple. I leaned in close to her ear. We need to deepen our bond. Keep training. Improve our compatibility. You want to do it again? I was already pushing her back down. The pity flower sword clattered to the floor as it slipped from her weakening grip. Lynn M.O, you bastard. Not again. The rest of her protest got silenced. This time, her resistance was noticeably softer. After all, this was for cultivation, for the family, for becoming a legendary warrior. At least, that's what she was telling herself.